Chapter 1144. Facing such a powerful attack, Saint Venerable Lu's life force and soul power were shaken at the same time, and his injuries were not light. But he still did not retreat. At the last moment when Daochuan Kenju was about to break free from the spatial shackles, his saber was raised high once again. This time, the saber actually emitted a brilliant white saber chi. This was the Xian Qi Saber Chi. This was a strange power that could only appear when the saber techniques of the Xian continent were used to the extreme. And this kind of power was enough to completely destroy the holy infant soul under this saber aura. Similar to the life spatial shackles, this was also an attack that burned one's life force and soul power. Saint Venerable Lu had used a desperate attack, because he knew that as long as he showed the slightest bit of mercy, this supremacy enduring heavens could escape in the next moment. Although his sneak attack this time had succeeded in heavily injuring him, and even used his powerful saber chi to directly destroy his 5 viscera and 6 bowels to a double Saint Venerable supremacy enduring heavens. Although these injuries were heavy, it was not enough to take his life. As long as he was given a period of time to recuperate, he would be able to completely recover, and his strength would not be affected in the slightest. The regenerative ability of Saint Venerable was already a synonym for terror, far beyond what ordinary people could imagine. As long as his head was still on his neck, even if the rest of his body was destroyed, he still had a chance to recover. This was the true terrifying ability of Saint Venerable, an almost undying body. So he had to strike while the iron was hot. Only by completely killing this fellow in one go could he settle this once and for all. And now, I have already taken the absolute initiative. This is the best chance to kill the enemy in one fell swoop. Daochuan Kenju roared angrily. His internal organs were almost completely exposed, trembling weakly as he roared. His 4 eyes were all bloodshot. He had already determined that this Saint Venerable Lu was clearly planning to perish together with him. But in the current situation, because the opponent's sneak attack had succeeded, the first slash had already destroyed his internal organs. Even if he wanted to use the stealth kill technique, he was already powerless to do so. If he could not kill the opponent, he would really have to die here, even though he was a double Saint Venerable. If the other party continued to pester him like this, only death awaited him. Not to mention the fact that he was already heavily injured. If he kept running away, he wouldn't be able to keep up with his opponent's speed, and he definitely wouldn't be able to shake him off. Thinking about this, Daochuan Kenju became determined. If I'm destined to die, then you'll die with me. With a sharp howl, the 2 long sabers charged towards Saint Venerable Lu's side viciously. The tip of the saber was also filled with blazing white Xian Qi saber aura. At this moment, the 2 of them had the same idea. If I'm going to kill you, I'll kill you until your body and soul are completely destroyed. Show no mercy. As the 3 long sabers clashed fiercely, the 2's faces became paler and paler. Both sides were burning their life force and soul force. No one could relax. Saint Venerable Lu laughed heartily. Suddenly, with a flash, he appeared at the side of Daochuan Kenju's body. With a swing of his saber, he resolutely slashed down. Daochuan Kenju laughed coldly in his heart as he attacked with both his blades. One pierced towards Saint Venerable Lu's dantian, the other towards his heart. This was attacking the enemy's vital points. As he had 2 bodies attacking at the same time, the momentum of this attack was even sharper than Saint Venerable Lu's attack. Daochuan Kenju was sure that Saint Venerable Lu would not fight head-on. Because his injuries were extremely heavy, he could be said to be in a precarious situation. Although Saint Venerable Lu had also expended a lot of his life force and soul force to use the life spatial lock, his situation was definitely better than his. Now, the method of perishing together was definitely not worth it for Saint Venerable Lu. Even if Saint Venerable Lu had the intention to perish together with him from the start, but now he was definitely not willing to do so, because he already had the absolute advantage. And in a battle between Saint Venerable experts, as long as one side retreated, the other side would definitely have the opportunity to flee far away, even if the space was already sealed by Saint Venerable Lu. But he had miscalculated. One wrong move, and the whole game was lost. Facing the two sabers that were coming at him fiercely, not only did Saint Venerable Lu not dodge, he instead let out a long howl and pushed his chest forward. The saber in his hand also increased in strength. Because of this, at this moment, all of Saint Venerable Lu's cultivation was gathered on the long saber. The Xianqi saber aura on the long saber was so intense that it was almost burning. Daochuan Kanju cried out in panic. In the instant that his two sabers were about to hit Saint Venerable Lu, he finally understood that his judgment was wrong. The other party actually made it clear that he wanted to perish together with him. His futile attempt to exchange injuries with him and force him to retreat was actually completely meaningless. With this thought, how could he still care about attacking the opponent? In his heart, there was only the thought of quickly retreating for his life. Saint Venerable Lu continued forward. That saber still did not change. Qi, the sharp saber in the hands of Daochuan, Kanju's female body, ruthlessly stabbed into Saint Venerable Lu's chest, where his heart was, accurately and without error. Then, with another Qi, the other saber also stabbed into Saint Venerable Lu's dantian, similarly accurately and without error. These two sabers stabbed and almost at the same time, but there was not the slightest bit of obstruction, as if they were cutting into pork. With a swoosh, they directly pierced through. Xianqi exploded in Saint Venerable Lu's body. With a bang, a thin mist of blood emerged from all the pores on Saint Venerable Lu's body at the same time. At this moment, Saint Venerable Lu did not even leave a single drop of energy to protect his body. All of his energy, without reservation, had already been completely channeled into the huge saber in his hands. And Saint Venerable Lu's body, at the moment of being struck by the saber, had already leapt into Daochuan Kanju's embrace. The long saber that was suffused with a blazing white Xianqi saber aura ruthlessly slashed down from the point where the two of them were connected. Swoosh! The two bodies were split into two by the saber. The three bodies, almost at the same time, spun and fell from the sky. Perishing together, the two bodies of Daochuan Kanju, as they spun, finally looked at each other face to face. They both smiled bitterly. Just a moment ago, the endless ruthlessness had actually disappeared without a trace. So, to look at each other without any restraint, it actually feels so comfortable. The female body of Daochuan Kanju smiled bitterly. There was no ruthlessness in her eyes, no hysteria. There was actually gentleness, a gentleness that belonged to a woman. The male body of Daochuan Kanju also had a gentle smile on his face as he slowly descended from the sky. His eyes, however, were fixed on the face of the female body. In his eyes, there was actually gentleness as well. If there is a next life, we will definitely be human, and we will look at each other and spend our lives together. The female body seemed to have blushed a little shy, but she gently stretched out her small hand. The male body of Daochuan Kanju laughed heartily. He stretched out his large hand and held the hand of the other half of his body tightly. The two of them closed their eyes at the same time, and just like that, they breathed their last. Under the Xianqi saber aura of Saint Venerable Lu, Daochuan Kanju was already unable to hold on. He did not even have the time to condense his holy infant, and his soul was directly severed, completely disappearing from the world. Although at the last moment of their lives, they still longed for the next life to depend on each other. But in reality, they were completely clear that their souls and primordial spirits had already been completely destroyed by Saint Venerable Lu's tyrannical Xianqi saber aura. They were destined to not have a next life. But before they died, to be able to hold each other's hands without any shackles, they were already satisfied. They had no more regrets. This instant was already an eternity. Whether there was a next life or not, what did it matter anymore? These two strange races were husband and wife, as well as brother and sister. Under such a rebellious relationship, the relationship between the male and female bodies of Daochuan, Kenju, was actually so deep. Until their deaths, they did not even look at Saint Venerable Lu again, since he was already destined to die, and even his soul was going to turn into nothingness in a moment. Then, whether others lived or died, what did it have to do with him? As for hatred, dreams, hopes, all of these, to people who had no future, no hope, were they still important? They were really not important anymore. And in the instant that Saint Venerable Lu confirmed that the other party had been struck by the saber aura, he had swallowed that heaven reversal pill. He also did not look at Daochuan Kenju again. The other party had been struck by his full power, a strike that was equivalent to perishing together with him. That would be unreasonable, since the other party was already destined to die. What was the point of looking at a corpse? If he had the time, he should hurry and kill the enemy. So the moment Saint Venerable Lu recovered, he immediately sprang up and flew towards where the other supremacy enduring heavens were. In fact, he did not even turn back, only leaving behind a sigh. He had come here to put his life on the line. Coming here this time, he did not even think of returning to Tian Fa alive. In that case, what was life and death? It didn't matter anymore. It really didn't matter anymore. His only wish was to drag as many strange races down with him as possible before he died. As for whether they were good or bad people, was this important? So what if they were good people? So what if they were bad people? This was war. This was a war between two continents. There was no right or wrong in war. There were only soldiers and the things that they wanted to protect. The things that they viewed as important as their lives were the things that the other party wanted to destroy with all their might. And everything that was born from this foundation could only be a matter of life and death. It was that simple. That was all. In another direction, the seven strange races' supremacy enduring heavens had also been intercepted by 7 Tian Fa Saint Venerables. Then it was naturally a life and death battle. In a battle between experts, life and death was decided in an instant. 3 of them had already finished their battles, and the victor and the loser had already been decided. On Tian Fa's side, there were 2 Saint Venerables who were heavily injured. After consuming the heaven reversal pill, they were now fighting a new opponent. And the other Tian Fa, Saint Venerable, was in a miserable state. In the end, he did not even have the chance to consume the heaven reversal pill before he perished together with his opponent. Seeing that the other party had reacted in time, causing his sneak attack to fail and forcing him to fight head-on, at the crucial moment when he was at an absolute disadvantage, this Saint Venerable decisively chose to self-detonate. In the end, he dragged this strange race's supremacy enduring heavens along with him, roaming the Yellow Springs. Such a choice, although he did not profit, at least he did not lose out. Chapter 1145. This was because there were constantly experts who chose to detonate their own vitality when they were no match for their opponents and could not hold on any longer. Most of them were Tian Fa warriors, but there were also some strange races. This was a rarely seen scene of heroism, but today it was so common. It was as if the lives of both sides were no longer valuable. They didn't care about it as much as they thought they would in this fiery war, where one side had to live or the other had to live. Even the most cowardly coward had become a fearless warrior at this moment. Right now, the Tian Fa warriors had already gone completely crazy. Most of the people in the Eagle and Bear Alliance had already consumed the heaven reversal pill they brought with them. As Xian beasts, the violent emotions in them had been completely ignited. The blood in their bones was also displayed to the fullest in this battle. His comrades were constantly falling in front of him, and his brothers were constantly exploding in the air into fragments of blood that filled the sky. Such a strong stimulation had caused every single Tian Fa warrior present to lose all sense of reason. Right now, there was only the enemy in their eyes. They could only kill the enemy and take revenge for their brothers. At the same time, The 100,000-strong outsiders' army that had lagged behind had already surged forward like a tidal wave. Riding on those strangely shaped horses, they charged into this flesh-grinding plate-like battlefield. With their advantage in numbers, they completely drowned Tion Fa's Eagle and Bear Alliance in the sea of people. And the battle between the supremacy-enduring heavens was still going on in the sky. The remaining 5 Tion Fa Saint Venerables and the remaining 5 supremacy-enduring heavens were engaged in a life-and-death battle. As for those 300 Frenzy Blade enduring earths, they let out shrill cries as they charged headfirst into the battlefield. Because of the addition of these Frenzy Blade enduring earths, who were second only to the supremacy-enduring heavens, they caused huge casualties to the Tion Fa army. And a huge pressure. The balance of power between the two sides had completely tilted. Ever since this group of Frenzy Blade enduring earths entered the fray, the rate at which the Tion Fa army self-destructed increased. Right now, less than half of the 6,000 soldiers were still alive. Another loud explosion came from the sky, and the air current from the explosion swirled violently, causing the volcano that was thousands of feet away to flicker a few times. Saint Venerable Lu's face revealed a trace of sadness. Without even looking, just by hearing such a loud sound, he already knew that another old brother had left him. Today, or perhaps the very next moment, he would chase after his old brother's footsteps, embark on the final journey back home. But he believed it even more. Whether it was himself, his old brothers, every single warrior below, and even the descendants of Tion Fa who were bleeding and sacrificing their lives, none of them would regret it, because this was the legacy of Tion Fa for 10,000 years. Just for Tion Fa, not for the continent. Even if I die, my will lives on. I will never regret. Eagle King howled madly, occasionally soaring into the sky to attack the enemies in the sky, and occasionally diving into the ground to slash with his sword. Although his saber was meticulously forged by Jun Moxie using the power of gold, it could not withstand such a long period of intense and crazy slashing. It had already turned into dust long ago. Right now, the sword in his hand was already the 4th weapon he had changed. He had even forgotten who he had snatched it from. Eagle King had also consumed the Heaven Reversal Pill a long time ago. Right now, there were more than 10 new wounds on his body, and some of them were so deep that his bones could be seen. But he seemed to not feel it at all, continuing to charge forward crazily, sweeping through the sky and on the ground, as fast as a shooting star. Only Bear King, Bear Mountain, was still waving his 1,600 gene long and heavy saber. But this huge saber had already turned into a huge saw. The edge of the saber was full of nicks. As if he didn't know fatigue, that huge body of his stood out like a crane among a flock of chickens. At this moment, the super strong defense of the Bear tribe was on full display. Bear King's imposing manner of holding the fort alone was a huge role model for the Tion Fa warriors. Every time a Tion Fa soldier felt tired and their limbs were sore from all the killing, they only needed to open their eyes to see that Bear King's huge body was still standing upright, still fighting bravely, still roaring like thunder, not showing the slightest sign of fatigue. At that time, everyone would feel as if there was an extra surge of strength supporting them from within their bodies. And so, they continued to pick up their weapons, continue to fight, continue to slaughter the strange races. This effect of Bear King was something that other Beast Kings did not have, because Bear King was an existence that was born for battle. That huge body was like a god of war. And this time, none of the hell-enduring ghosts and Frenzy Blade enduring earths dared to use stealth tactics. The battle before them was not a one-on-one war for seizing the heavens. If they were invisible, their enemies would not be able to see them, but their own people would also not be able to see them. On the battlefield, be it friend or foe, everyone's eyes had already turned red from killing. There was only one thought left in their minds. If it wasn't me, it would be the enemy. If they really used stealth, they would definitely not be able to avoid the dense rain of swords and sabers. That would be akin to playing with their lives. Therefore, no matter how unwilling he was, he could only give up on this heaven-defying killer move that could turn the tide of a battle in any one-on-one battle, and engage in a real battle royale with his opponent. In midair, Saint Venerable Lu laughed loudly. Dragging his injured body, he charged towards a strange race's supremacy enduring heavens in front of him. His right leg had already disappeared at some point in time. As to who it was that had chopped it off, it was no longer important to Saint Venerable Lu. On the other side, the strange races also roared savagely. Their eyes were also filled with despair and craziness, and they similarly counterattacked. The 13 of them had come out together to obtain the number 1 battle merit, a total of 13 supremacy enduring heavens. What kind of powerful force was this? But they had been ambushed here, and it was an ambush from Tion Fa, Saint Venerable. If it was an ambush from the 3 Holy Lands, they were confident that they would be able to survive it. But these Tion Fa, Saint Venerable seniors, although they were fighting in human form, they were still a bunch of Xian beasts in their bones. Xian beast kings, and all of them had reached the level of Saint Venerable. Whether it was in terms of defense or offense, they were all stronger than the humans from the 3 Holy Lands. After this huge battle, the 13 brothers on his side were only left with 2, and all of them were riddled with injuries, and their strength was greatly reduced. Although the 8 Saint Venerables on the other side were only left with 2, and they looked to be in a worse state than his side, but this supremacy enduring heaven still wanted to cry, but had no tears. 13 against 8, and each of them had the strength of 2 Saint Venerables. Their combined strength was almost 3 times that of the other side. But in the end, this was the outcome. Before they came out, no one would have expected such a result. He pounced viciously towards Saint Venerable Lu. This supremacy enduring heavens could already tell that this hateful old deer was most likely the leader of the Tion Fa Saint Venerables. All the schemes in front of him were probably planned by him. And because of this hateful beast, his 11 brothers had been completely annihilated right in front of him. Even the chance to reincarnate was completely gone. Hey, even if he died, he would definitely drag this hateful old deer down with him. Saint Venerable Lu's action of pouncing over was exactly what he wanted. Including this person in front of him, he had already killed a total of 3 supremacy enduring heavens from the other side. It was truly too much. Even if he died, he could die in peace. The 2 of them gritted their teeth as they closed in on each other. Their eyes were filled with the same kind of madness and determination. At this moment, the 2 of them no longer had any weapons in their hands. No matter how sturdy a weapon was, it would shatter under the fierce clash of Saint Venerables. The 2 of them charged forward barehanded just like that. Just as their bodies were about to make contact, the 2 of them did the exact same thing, self-destruct. With a loud boom, the 2 of them collided. Following that, there was an earth-shattering tremor. These 2 Saint Venerables had ignited their remaining life force and soul power at the same time. The 2 of them did not intend to return alive. Fearing that the other party would not die, they did not even hold back the energy of their holy infant reincarnation. At the same time, they released the most dazzling fireworks in the sky. This was the last time the soul power of the 2 of them would release the most dazzling light on this continent. With a loud bang, an unprecedentedly violent explosion occurred, clearing out the area within a radius of several hundred zhang below the ground. Close to 10,000 warriors of both sides were sent flying in all directions like rubber balls. Among them, there were many unlucky ones who bore the brunt of the explosion and were directly turned into minced meat by the air currents of the explosion. Then, they were sent flying into the distance. Big brother! Saint Venerable Bear roared as if he was about to cry. All of a sudden, his mind went blank. 8 old brothers, gathered together for 2,000 years. From birth, they had fought together, grown up together, consumed the 1,000 poisons and 10,000 evil fruit to break through to the spirit Xian realm, journeying together, participating in 2 war for seizing the heavens, fighting against the 9 serenities and 14 masters, and then being sealed in the 9 nether realms at the same time, living together day and night. The 8 of them had roamed the world together when they were young. How high-spirited and spirited had they been? How resounding was the reputation of the 8 saints of Tion Fa? Who in the world would dare to look them in the eye? If one of their brothers was bullied or wronged, the 8 of them would definitely fight together. Right now, apart from himself, the other 7 brothers had all been turned into nothingness in this battle, dead without a complete corpse. From young to old, how could they part? How could they part? I can't bear to part. Even if there's only the road to the yellow springs in front of me, even if I return to nothingness, I will still accompany my brothers. If someone bullies them, I will still act at any time. I will use my life to protect them, no matter where, no matter if it's my body or my soul. Saint Venerable Bear turned his head fiercely and glared at the last remaining supremacy enduring heavens. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face was twisted. "Come over," Saint Venerable Bear said expressionlessly. "Hurry up. Don't delay my reunion time with my brothers." As he said the word brothers, his eyes turned distant and blazing. The faces of the 7 brothers appeared in front of Saint Venerable Bear one by one before disappearing into the distance. Saint Venerable Bear seemed to feel the departure of his brothers, and an intense pain surged in his heart. All of a sudden, he roared, "Wait for me!" Just like back when he was roaming the pugilistic world, when his brothers had played a prank on him and left him behind. That kind of anxious cry. It was still the same feelings from back then. "Brothers, wait for me. Together. No matter what. No matter life or death. Together." Chapter 1146. A strange smile appeared on the face of that supremacy enduring heavens. It was a smile that was filled with understanding. He said, "Old Bear, don't separate us?" The originally strange and noisy voice became extremely clear and melodious at this moment, and the female supremacy enduring heavens did not say a word, but her eyes were burning and gentle. Saint Venerable Bear's eyes flashed, and he said lightly, "You will not separate. We will not separate. My brothers are waiting for me. I don't want them to wait for too long. We are the same mind. Are my brothers also waiting for me?" This supremacy enduring heavens laughed pitifully as he looked at the blood mist in front of him with a desolate and empty look in his eyes. "Don't think that you're the only one with brothers. Old Bear, come. Let's go together." This supremacy enduring heavens had just finished speaking when he charged over crazily. Tion Fa, 10,000 ancient. At this moment, Saint Venerable Bear's fierce cry shook the heavens and earth. Then, his majestic body, which was riddled with scars, charged forward. His footsteps were resolute, and he did not turn back. There was no trace of longing. He was shouting in his heart, "Brothers, wait for me. Whether it's a mountain of blades or a sea of flames, this old bear will walk with you." Boom! HHH, on the ground, the charging Bear King and Bear Mountain suddenly let out a loud roar as they faced the sky, their faces filled with tears of blood. In the instant that an unusually brilliant spark erupted in the sky, a volcano in the distance suddenly spewed out a pillar of fire that soared into the sky with a boom. This sudden violent sound and violent explosion actually caused the entire ground to shake and flicker. And on the battlefield, both sides felt as if they were on a ship that had encountered a tsunami. Everyone raised their eyes at the same time and looked towards the north. They saw that in the distance, there was a volcano erupting, and a pillar of fire that was absolutely greater than any other volcano's eruption had ever erupted. It shot into the sky for thousands of meters. They were clearly hundreds of li away, but everyone could see it clearly. At this time, it was when Jun Moxie and Gu Han knocked Jean Lun Hui into the volcano, and Jean Lun Hui rushed out. Jean Lun Hui's fall had triggered the most intense eruption since the eruption of the volcano. "Oh!" Bear Mountain raised his head and let out a long howl. Saint Venerable Bear's sacrifice had caused Bear King, to completely lose his last bit of rationality. "You damn bastards! Go to hell! Hurry up and die!" Bear Mountain's eyes were bloodshot, and the aura overflowing from his body was shockingly tyrannical to the extreme. Following a deafening roar, the muscles all over his body strangely bulged up, veins popping up all over his body. The originally abnormally huge Bear King's body suddenly expanded to twice its original size. Bear King's entire body seemed to be surrounded by a ring of black mist. It looked extremely illusory, but it was also clearly visible. This extreme contrast in vision shocked everyone who saw Bear King's strange transformation. A peculiar sound that sounded like the explosion of a soul rang out. This sound was not loud, like a very light explosion from the depths of one's soul. But in this battlefield where the sounds of battle and the sounds of volcano eruptions could be heard, this sound that should have been completely covered up was heard by everyone present. That was the sound of a being advancing, a sound that was above all mortals in this world. Bear Mountain's huge body once again burst out with a ball of golden mist. Before the golden mist could dissipate, his originally 3 zhang tall body had already swelled to almost 4 zhang, and in this instant he had doubled in size. From the looks of it, Bear King's body was at least 4 zhang tall. If one were to say that he was a long man earlier, he was now a standard giant. The clothes on his body that had already been stretched to their limits suddenly burst apart with a pa-pa sound. At this moment, Bear King's breath was like he was swallowing the heavens and earth. His body was 4 zhang tall, and his eyes were like bells. His face was twisted as he roared towards the sky. The weather changed. Bear Mountain, under this extremely tragic series of blows, all the grief, anger, and hatred in his heart had been transformed into his own strength. At this critical moment, in this intense battle, he had actually stepped into the ranks of the 1st grade Saint Venerable from a 4th grade Holy Emperor. This could be said to be a great breakthrough, but it was also a breakthrough at an untimely time, because right now, it could not be said to be a good time to deal with the heavenly tribulation. Around him, tens of strange races were raising their blades and slashing wildly at Bear Mountain's huge body. The target was simply too obvious, and it was extremely difficult to miss. However, the moment the blades landed on his body, they suddenly bounced back. The back of the blades smashed viciously onto the forehead and face of its original owner. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere, and a large number of people were thrown off their horses. After Bear King broke through in the midst of battle, his protective Xian Qi had naturally risen to the Saint Venerable level. Furthermore, because he had just broken through, he was still unable to control his Xian Qi as he wished. Thus, his Xian Qi was at its most violent state, and had nowhere to vent it out. Attacking the Bear King at this time was precisely giving the berserk Xian Qi an outlet to vent, and the strange races would naturally suffer greatly. His entire body covered in wounds and blood, Eagle King stared at Bear King who had broken through, his heart wailing uncontrollably. "My dear brother Ah, why did you break through at this time? Why did you break through at this time? No matter what time it would be much better than now, right? Because once he broke through, the lightning tribulation would definitely follow. Right now, the battle was at its most intense. How would he survive the lightning tribulation? What was even more terrifying was that the lightning tribulation did not care whether the people around you were friend or foe. It only counted by the number of people around you. This lightning tribulation's coverage was already terrifying. To what extent would it expand to? Eagle King, who had never known the word fear in his entire life, was actually completely numb at this moment. In the sky, as the wind and clouds surged, large patches of black clouds quickly gathered in this direction. A faint circle slowly formed in midair and rotated slowly. Although its momentum was slow, the pressure it exuded was incomparably strong. Bear King did not seem to care about that formless pressure at all. With a loud roar, he raised the sawtooth-like blade in his hand and charged forward crazily. What was the heavenly tribulation? Who cares what it was? At this moment, Bear Mountain did not even think about the heavenly tribulation. He did not even notice that he had actually broken through in the midst of battle. The Bear King at this moment was only filled with rage. To fight, to kill, to slash, to take revenge. Other than that, there was nothing else in his heart. Bear King's bloodshot eyes were filled with madness and brutality. There was nothing else. At this moment, Bear Mountain had already fallen into an extremely frenzied state. He believed that even if Eagle King was standing in front of him right now, he would not hesitate to slash at him with his blade. Big Bear strode forward like a shooting star, rushing towards the densest group of strange races. His rush was like a red-hot knife stabbing into butter, straight and easy. With his current cultivation of a Saint Venerable, charging in with all his might was naturally invincible and invincible. And the shocking regenerative ability of a Saint Venerable also opened up an almost inexhaustible source of motivation for Xiongkaisen. On the battlefield, a total of 21 Saint Venerables from both sides had already turned into dust. Bear Mountain, who had just broken through, became the only Saint Venerable left on the battlefield. The strongest, most unparalleled existence. With a sweep of his blade, blood rained down from the sky, and a foul stench filled the air. This slaughter was even more spectacular than the previous one. Eagle King covered his eyes, unable to bear to watch any longer. As Bear Mountain's good brother for hundreds of years, how could he not see it? At this moment, fourth Brother Bear had already gone completely berserk. He could not recognize anyone, be it himself, the warriors of the Bear tribe, or even if Big Sister came personally, she might not be able to call fourth brother back to his senses. Bear Mountain, whose strength had increased greatly, naturally would not be able to do anything to the strange races. But with the heavenly tribulation that was about to arrive, how could a person who had fallen into a berserk state survive it? Dozens of Frenzy Blade enduring Earths watched as Bear Mountain massacred their own tribesmen. They called out to each other and charged towards him at the same time. Although Bear King had already reached the Saint Venerable realm, and his strength had already surpassed the Frenzy Blade enduring Earths of the strange races, he had only broken through at the last moment, and his strength had not stabilized yet. With so many people gathered together, as long as they could surround Bear King, they did indeed have the strength to kill him. Kill, kill, kill. Ah! Bear Mountain waved his blade like a machine, and with each slash, an empty space was created, and the enemy's 50 or so Frenzy Blade enduring Earths had finally formed an encirclement. Everyone's eyes were filled with cruelty as they stared at Bear Mountain. Even if this person was already a Saint Venerable, with so many people surrounding him, they would definitely be able to kill him. With a loud roar from the leader, hundreds of sharp blades shot towards Bear Mountain in a deadly encirclement. Right at this time, the tribulation clouds in the sky had finally finished gathering, and the lightning tribulation was about to begin. With a loud crack of thunder, a bolt of lightning as thick as a bull's mouth struck down. The heavenly tribulation that Bear King faced after his breakthrough had actually arrived at such a critical moment. The most serious thing was that right now, Bear Mountain had completely lost his consciousness. Whatever heavenly tribulation, lightning tribulation, he had not even thought about it. In fact, Bear King did not even know that the sudden increase in strength in his body was due to his breakthrough. He only knew that it was good to have strength. With this new strength, he would be able to chop this bunch of trash apart one by one. Take revenge for Saint Venerable Bear. Take revenge for the 8 Saint Venerables. With a shrill cry, Bear Mountain was like an unstoppable tornado, charging straight into the Frenzy Blade enduring Earth's camp, without any regard for his own safety. His eyes widened in anger, and the serrated blade in his hands turned into a raging dragon that could overturn rivers and seas. Chapter 1147. It was unknown whether this Frenzy Blade enduring Earth who was raising his blade and shouting loudly should feel honored or extremely unlucky. In any case, The first bolt of lightning from the heavenly tribulation that belonged to the Saint Venerable had been personally tasted by a second-grade Saint Emperor like him. The result was obvious. Before he could do anything, he had already turned into a pile of charcoal. As for the perpetrator, Bear Mountain, he was completely oblivious to what was happening not too far away. He was still laughing maniacally, howling madly, and roaring furiously. His sturdy body moved like a whirlwind, and his footsteps did not stop at all. His only thought was to use the saber in his hand to carve a path of blood through these 100,000 strange races, charging to the end, and then charging back from the other side, repeating this cycle over and over again, until all of them were killed. One could not help but admire Jun Dashao's craftsmanship. The saber in Bear Mountain's hands was the only weapon that could still be used in the Eagle-Bear Alliance. Although the saber's edge was broken due to excessive slashing and clashing, the power of the saber was even more terrifying in such a densely packed battlefield. The thunder and lightning above his head sounded like concentrated firecrackers. The first lightning tribulation did not have any effect, as if it had angered the supreme dignity of the lightning tribulation. As if it had become angry out of humiliation, it actually sent out 3 lightning tribulations in a triangular shape. In a flash, the heavenly tribulation lit up the sky, and in the next moment, it had already touched the ground. Such a shocking speed caused everyone to be dumbfounded. But when the 3 bolts of lightning struck down, Bear Mountain had once again rushed out from his original position by 50 zhang. The Bear King, who was in an unintentional state, had actually unintentionally dodged the heavenly tribulation. A distance of 50 zhang was not considered far, but he had dodged the heavenly tribulation head-on. Behind him, there were more than a dozen Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths. They had just started their attack, but Bear Mountain had already rushed past them with a roar. Before they could even understand what had happened, the enemy had already disappeared, and 2 of their comrades had already been chopped into 8 pieces. What was going on now? It was a great humiliation. All of them turned around and chased after Bear Mountain's footsteps with bloodshot eyes. Seeing this fellow swinging his saber like a huge boat, reaping the lives of their own tribesmen in a frenzy, the Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths could only feel their blood rushing to their heads. Extreme humiliation. Even if the ones who died were ant-like existences that he had never paid any attention to, they were still his people. He could look down on them, but he would not allow others to trample on them. But right at this time, the 3 bolts of lightning tribulation descended, landing right in the middle of this group of people. With a bang, the 3 frenzied blade Enduring Earths that were the weakest among them instantly stiffened, and black smoke rose from their mouths as they fell to the ground. There were another 5 or 6 frenzied blade Enduring Earths that were directly paralyzed by the power of the lightning tribulation, and they were sent flying uncontrollably. Being sent flying did not mean that their lives were spared. These few frenzied blade Enduring Earths who had already lost all their strength were coincidentally chopped into splatters of blood by Eagle King, who had rushed over to help Bear King. Kacha! 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 On the ground, Big Bear had gone berserk. The Bear tribe had gone berserk. The Eagle tribe had gone berserk. All the remaining Tian Fa warriors had gone berserk, and the outsiders had also gone berserk. And in the sky, the heavenly tribulation had also gone crazy. Everyone present, regardless of which side, had gone crazy. The thunder tribulations were divided into groups of 3, and they struck down one after another like a sudden hailstorm. The frequency of the thunder tribulations was getting more and more intense, and there were actually groups of 6 and groups of 9. They followed behind Big Bear's body that was moving like a gale, fiercely striking, furiously striking, and continuously striking. Hundreds of bolts of lightning tribulation were unable to hit the person undergoing the tribulation. Such a strange thing was something that had never been seen in millions of years, even for a heavenly tribulation. We don't know if this heavenly tribulation thing has a consciousness, but if I was the heavenly tribulation, especially Lightning Bear Mountain's heavenly tribulation, it would definitely fly into a rage out of humiliation. F***, this daddy wasn't that good at dispelling people and I dispelled wherever I wanted. Even if I was lucky enough to dodge a few bolts, it shouldn't be to the extent of not being able to dispel them all, right? What is this? Is there still any justice in this world? This sudden and strange change had actually caused Bear Mountain's killing power to increase by tens of times. Towards the end, it had increased by more than 100 times. At most, Bear King had only managed to carve out a path of blood, but the strange races that were following behind him were taken care of by the heavenly tribulation, because this fellow's unintentional movement speed was simply too fast. This sort of unconscious movement had long surpassed the limits of his mental strength and allowed the heavenly tribulation to strike the strange races' heads. In the places that this fellow went, every single direction he chose was the most densely packed with strange races. Therefore, there was no need to worry that the heavenly tribulation wouldn't hit anyone. The scene was truly too lively. A majestic, muscular, and huge black bear wielding a huge sawtooth saber took the lead, roaring and leaping forward crazily with white foam coming out his mouth. That was called lively. That was called cheerful. Furthermore, he was actually leading a large number of lightning bolts right behind him. They were also crazily striking down from the sky as if they were free of charge. Such a shocking scene could only be roughly described as a volley of rocket launchers in modern warfare. It was an indiscriminate carpet attack, landing row after row of lightning bolts on the ground. Miserable screams shook the heavens, and people were thrown off their horses. Countless non-human beings were turned into charcoal by this man-made disaster, and even more non-human beings were unwittingly turned into flying people, flying freely in the sky without any consciousness. Eagle King, who was following behind to provide support, was completely dumbfounded. After staring blankly for a long time, Eagle King tilted his head and spat out a mouthful of saliva, muttering in shock, F***CK. This works too. F***CK me. Could it be that this stupid bear really has stupid luck? Do I still need to worry about him? The Bear King, who had unexpectedly broken through to the Saint Venerable realm, was still full of energy despite being blocked by powerful enemies. He was still as crazy as ever, courageously advancing forward. No one could stop him, even if it was just a step or half a step, but after such a long period of exhaustion, even though his spirit was still high, his stamina was gradually unable to keep up. Although a Saint Venerable's regenerative ability was shocking, he was still a human, and as long as he was a human, he would still have his limits. Especially for someone like Bear Mountain who had just entered the Saint Venerable realm, he did not know how to be stingy and only focused on killing. Naturally, he began to feel that his stamina could not keep up, and he could not catch his breath. At this moment, Bear King was still trapped within the 100,000-strong army. Under Bear Mountain's ferocious attacks, the strange races had undoubtedly suffered great losses. This was obvious and undeniable. The entire formation of the Outsiders had been destroyed by him, and it could be said that they were in complete disarray. There were even many deserters who had scattered in all directions, and there were no less than a few thousand who had been burnt to ashes by the heavenly lightning. Not to mention the others, just the frenzy blade enduring earths, who were currently the strongest among the strange races, and those who had died directly under Bear Mountain's hands or had suffered because of him had already exceeded 100 people. Thus, although Bear Mountain was a little tired, he was not in any danger. The frenzy blade enduring earths that had surrounded him previously had already disappeared. No one was an idiot, and those frenzy blade enduring earths were even less so. What a joke! Who would be willing to take the risk of being implicated by the heavenly tribulation just to attack a Saint Venerable whose strength was far beyond their own? That was not bravery at all. That was directly sending their lives to their deaths, or even helping the enemy. Those who had died due to the lightning tribulation earlier, weren't they all helping Bear King in his tribulation? Thus, although Bear Mountain's speed was slightly slower than before, the moment the enemies saw him, they would immediately cry out and scatter in all directions. The attacks from the enemies had stopped, but the might of the lightning tribulation had already reached its most intense moment. It had actually sent out a total of 81 bolts of lightning in one go. Up until this point, Bear Mountain still could not understand what was going on. Just as he was running with his eyes wide open, searching for the enemy's gathering point, a bolt of lightning accurately exploded above his head. An unprecedented pain almost caused Bear King to fall on his butt. Bear Mountain was enraged. F***CK. You can't beat this daddy in a fight, and you dare to launch a sneak attack. Just because this daddy slowed down a little, you think this daddy is a sick cat? Bear Mountain's hair stood up in anger, and he gathered all his remaining courage, brandishing his huge blade once more as he charged into the dense formation of the strange races while cursing crazily behind him. The heavenly tribulation followed him like a shadow. When the strange races in front of him saw this fiend leading the heavenly tribulation over again, they were so scared that they almost peed their pants. If this was still a sick cat, the most terrifying existence in this world would probably have to change its name to a sick cat. F***CK. We're people who've fought in wars our entire lives, but we've never seen a battle like this before. Just this one person. Even if he's a Saint Venerable, we're not afraid. We have so many people, even if we only use cannon fodder, we can still pile him to death. But the heavenly tribulation behind him is not a joke. No matter how many people there are, it won't be enough. Thus, Bear King roared loudly, and in the blink of an eye, he had already run another 200 jong. Behind him, there was a large patch of scorched earth, and the dense heavenly tribulation was truly like a rocket. With such a terrifying frequency, there was actually not a single rock larger than a fist on the ground. But at this time, the final explosion of the heavenly tribulation, which was also the strongest, the widest area, and the most destructive, also struck down. Chapter 1148. Today's third watch. Make up for the debt, Chapter 9. Within a radius of 1,000 jong. It was a true attack that covered a large area. Perhaps luck would not follow a person forever. Coincidentally or not, Bear King had actually sunk into a state of near exhaustion at this time. Hong. An unprecedented, heaven-shaking explosion rang out. The remaining tens of thousands of people on the ground all jumped up in unison, their feet lifting 3 chi off the ground. Within a radius of 100 jong, all living beings, regardless of friend or foe, were all turned into ashes. The fragrance of roasted meat spread out to a distance of 30 li. The Bear King roared into the sky and was struck by a bolt of lightning. His entire body was covered in lightning, and he convulsed for a while. Then, with a loud roar, he spat out a mouthful of blood from his throat. As he spat out this mouthful of blood, Bear King's majestic body finally toppled over like a mountain of gold and jade, right in the center. Fourth brother, Eagle King cried out, his voice sounding like he was weeping blood. With a flap of his wings, he shot towards that direction with all his might. Kill! The 6 frenzy blade enduring earths not far from Bear King's position had also noticed this and were overjoyed. Without waiting for the power of the heavenly tribulation to dissipate, they raised their blades and charged towards Bear Mountain. With their strength, they naturally knew that they could not allow this Bear King to recover from this attack. If he recovered, then this black bear would be a true Saint Venerable existence. At that time, the few of them remaining would really be in for a hard time. While he was still recovering from the power of the heavenly tribulation, and his body was still weak, they had to quickly kill him. Blade light flashed. A distance of 100 jong was merely the blink of an eye for the frenzy blade enduring earths. Almost at the same time, 6 snow-white blades slashed down on the Bear King's majestic body that was lying on the ground. Everyone's eyes were filled with endless joy. Just this one person in front of them had killed at least 150 frenzy blade enduring earths, as well as close to 10,000 strange races elites in just an hour's time. Killing him now was already letting him off too lightly. Fourth brother, the Eagle King, let out a long cry. With a face full of tears, he resolutely pounced forward at lightning speed. Just as the blades of the 6 frenzy blade enduring earths were about to land on Bear Mountain's body, The Eagle King let out a shrill cry and transformed into a gigantic black eagle, pouncing onto Bear Mountain's body. Without the slightest hesitation, puff, 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 6 blades landed on Eagle King's body at the same time. In an instant, blood splattered and iron feathers fluttered in the air. 6 blades, a total of 6 holy emperors attacked at the same time, and all of them accurately hit their targets. The Eagle King's body was almost chopped into 6 pieces. Fortunately, his body was huge. Out of the 6 blades, 4 of them landed on his iron wings. However, there were still 2 that pierced into his body. The Eagle King let out a piercing howl. Then, he jumped up abruptly. His pair of iron wings had already been completely broken into several pieces. His body had also been pierced by the blades, for bloody holes appeared on his front and back, and fresh blood gushed out like a fountain. This kind of injury was a fatal one. Furthermore, the Eagle King had already taken the Heaven Reversal Pill. At this moment, even if June Moxie or the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters came personally and infused him with the purest Xian-Qi and the most precious elixirs in the world, they would not be able to save the Eagle King's life. But the Eagle King still jumped up. It was still filled with endless determination and heroism. Using his steel-like body, he blocked wave after wave of attacks for his sworn brother, who was lying unconscious on the ground. "Fourth brother, quickly get up. Quickly wake up." The Eagle King's voice sounded like he was crying, but also like he was praying. His eyes were filled with tears of blood. His iron wings had already been broken into many pieces, and they hung limply on his body. But when he saw the other strange races sneak an attack on Bear Mountain, he actually tore off a piece of his own wing and used it as a hidden weapon. Mixed with blood, he threw it out to block the enemy's attack. A total of 7 strange races level 9 ninjas were cut in half by the iron wings he threw out. Screaming in pain, they were cut in half at the waist in front of Bear Mountain. The huge blades in their hands slashed down just a few millimeters away from stabbing into Bear Mountain's body. They almost grazed Bear Mountain's skin and stabbed deep into the ground. The long blades shone brightly. "Fourth brother, wake up!" The Eagle King cried out hoarsely, trying his best to block the attacks of the 6 frenzy blade enduring earths. Flashes of light from the blades landed on his body, tearing apart pieces of flesh and blood. "Fourth brother, hurry up and get up." The Eagle King could barely make a sound at this point. His throat was already filled with blood, and the moment he loosened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood, it would be the moment his soul would shatter. He did not dare to spit out this mouthful of blood. He could not die yet. His brother was still lying on the ground. In his heart, he was still screaming crazily, Fourth brother, wake up." I can't hold on much longer. Self-destruct. I don't dare to self-destruct. I can't self-destruct. Fourth brother is just behind me. If I self-destruct, I won't know what will happen next. I won't be able to do anything anymore. Who will protect my brother then? Another slash landed on the Eagle King's shoulder, and the Eagle King raised his head to the sky in pain, letting out a low roar. Then he stretched out his neck and stabbed his sharp beak into the chest of the strange race enduring earths, piercing through both their bodies at the same time. Then he pulled it out, ignoring the fact that his body had already been stabbed 3 more times, and with another twist of his head, the sharp beak flew towards another frenzy blade enduring earths. His arms were broken. His wings were broken. All that was left was this last and most primitive method of attack. However, his body remained motionless from beginning to end. He was like a mountain that had existed since the beginning of time, using his sturdy body to closely guard the motionless big bear. He was determined not to let anyone attack his brother, who was currently in a deep sleep. In truth, the Eagle King was not the only one who had gone crazy. The remaining 5 frenzy blade enduring earths were also in a frenzy. This was equivalent to 5 level 3 holy emperors joining hands, but they still could not break through the Eagle King, who had clearly been heavily injured to the point that he should have died 10,000 times. But they still could not kill him. The sabers rained down like a torrential downpour. The Eagle King trembled, attacked, leaped, spasmed. He could no longer feel the slightest bit of pain on his body. His eyes were blurry, and the eagle eyes that were once as sharp as blades could no longer see the appearance of the enemy clearly. But his heart was still screaming anxiously. Fourth brother, wake up. Fourth brother, pu. Finally, 5 blades pierced into the vital points of the Eagle King's body from different directions. 2 blades pierced through his head. 2 blades pierced through his heart. 1 blade pierced through his dantian, through his back. The Eagle King's body shook. Suddenly, he froze like a statue. His body, from a state of rapid jumping, suddenly turned into a state of deathly stillness. The eagle eyes that were once shining with a golden light rolled over unconsciously, looking at the 2 blades in his head and then at the long blade in his heart. The Eagle King suddenly cried out in grief and indignation. 2 streams of tears, along with the blood that had been suppressed in his throat for a long time, flowed out together. The Eagle King was crying with endless despair in his heart. He was not afraid of death, but he was not crying for himself, because just the injuries on his body right now could kill him at least a dozen times, or even a dozen times. Death was not scary. It was not worth crying, but he was still crying, all because his brother finally had no one to protect him. The only reason he was still struggling was to protect his brother's last bit of faith, his last bit of fighting spirit. If I go, who will protect you? My 4th brother? He suddenly used the last bit of his strength, shouting hoarsely, I cannot die, I still cannot die, If I die, what will happen to 4th brother? 4th brother, quickly wake up. Stop playing around. Quickly wake up, I can't hold on any longer. The Eagle King's consciousness gradually blurred, his words also becoming more and more incoherent. From shouting hoarsely to mumbling, he even hoped that the Bear King was not really unconscious and was just joking with him. 5 long blades, one after another, were pulled out from the Eagle King's body, still dripping with the boiling hot blood of a man. The Eagle King's body spasmed and swayed, but he still stood firm and did not fall. His 2 eyes, still filled with endless hatred, filled with endless worry, stared fiercely in front of him, not moving at all. At this moment, his body still had the aura of a king who could massacre the world, a domineering aura, although his pair of iron wings were no longer there. Although his entire body, from top to bottom, was full of injuries, with not a single part of him left intact. Although 70 to 80% of the bones in his body had been broken, but he still maintained his standing posture, still in his battle stance. In the eyes of everyone, he was still the Eagle King that soared through the 9 heavens, the strongest king in the sky, the absolute overlord of aerial battles, even though at this moment he was on the ground. Ho! The Eagle King's body trembled, and with a low roar, he suddenly took another step forward. His eyes stared fixedly at the 5 people in front of him, cruel and ruthless. This was the final radiance of his life, and also the final warning, as though it was warning the enemies in front of him. Never, you can never, hurt my brother. The 5 frenzy blade, enduring earths in front of him, suddenly felt a sense of fear from the depths of their souls. The 5 experts all took a step back at the same time. Ho! The Eagle King resolutely took another step forward. His eyes were still cruel, and his battle intent was still limitless. The ruthlessness in his body was still surging out. The 5 strange races all took another step back at the same time. One of the legs of one of them were already trembling uncontrollably. To be able to become the frenzy blade enduring earths, they had naturally experienced tens of thousands of battles, but they had never seen such a person before, such a shin beast. Facing such a tragic situation, they actually did not dare to take a step forward, cowering in front of the limitless battle intent of the Eagle King. In order to protect their brothers, an unwavering battle intent. Even though they knew that as long as they took a step forward, with just a finger they would be able to push down the Eagle King in front of them, so that he would never be able to stand up again for the rest of his life. But for some reason, the five of them, the five first-class experts, did not dare to take a step forward. Oh, the mouthful of blood that had been stored in the Eagle King's throat finally gushed out like a fountain, soaking the ground beneath his feet. After spitting out the blood, the Eagle King finally took another step forward. The third step. Chapter 1149. The Eagle King's feet suddenly stopped in midair, not moving at all. It was as if he had turned into an eternal statue. Only his head was still slowly turning backwards, looking at his fourth brother who was lying quietly on the ground, in despair and reluctance. "I'm not at ease, fourth brother. Please wake up. I really can't take it anymore, ah?" Eagle King begged in despair. His voice was so low that even he himself couldn't hear it. Then his body suddenly stopped moving. Not a single sound could be heard from him anymore. But his head was still turned, and his eyes were still telling of his anxiety, despair, and helplessness. "Fourth brother, I can't protect you anymore." Eagle King's eyes were filled with sorrow, regret, and anxiety. Just like that, Bear King was still lying there quietly, oblivious to everything around him. He was really too tired. His body had been completely overdrawn beyond the limit. The heavenly tribulation had struck him, and almost all the bones in his body had been removed. In the silence, his spirit seemed to be wandering in the void. There seemed to be something, but he couldn't remember it clearly. He couldn't grasp it, and he couldn't see it clearly. Right now, he just wanted to sleep. He didn't want to think about anything, and he just wanted to sleep. But at this moment, there seemed to be a heart-wrenching voice shouting, "Fourth brother, wake up!" It seemed to be ninth brother calling him. It was Eagle King. Bear King's heart jolted. Bear Mountain tried his best to open his eyes, but he couldn't. He continued to try, but his eyelids were as heavy as a mountain. My brother is calling me." Bear Mountain thought anxiously, trying his best to open his eyes, but it was useless. His body was as soft as cotton. "Fourth brother, wake up, wake up. I can't take it anymore." It was Eagle King's voice again. Bear Mountain's spirit was roaring angrily, struggling anxiously. Ninth brother, what happened to you? Ninth brother, fourth brother is here. Fourth brother will be here soon." Suddenly, the image of the Eagle King miraculously appeared in Bear Mountain's mind. Bear Mountain seemed to have finally opened his eyes. Looking at his bloodied brother in his mind, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his heart. It was as if his 5 viscera and 6 bowels had been shattered into pieces at this moment. In his mind, the Eagle King looked at him in despair. In an almost inaudible voice, he moved his lips with difficulty. "Fourth brother, wake up." Then the Eagle King's figure suddenly disappeared. It was even more abrupt than before. Big Bear raised his head to the sky and roared. Then he suddenly jumped up from the ground. He finally woke up. On the battlefield of blood and fire, the Bear King, who had just passed the lightning tribulation, had actually awoken miraculously. But just as he opened his sleepy eyes, they widened to the limit in an instant, and his eyes looked as if they were going to split open. An indescribable grief and indignation rushed into his heart like a raging wave. In front of him, there was only darkness. An imposing figure, quietly blocking in front of him, not moving at all. Drip, drip, drip. Sticky blood flowed continuously from this person's body, dripping on a Bear Mountain's body. When he woke up, that roar caused the surrounding strange races to tremble in fear. But this person blocking him, why didn't he move? Why didn't he move? Why didn't he turn his head to look at me? Why did this figure seem so familiar? But my brother doesn't have such a figure. Does he look like ninth brother? A little, but he doesn't have ninth brother's wide wings. And he doesn't have wings? No wings. A terrifying thought suddenly appeared in Bear Mountain's mind. He suddenly felt his heart contract violently. An indescribable heartache suddenly surged up like a mountain and overturning the sea. He carefully stood up, moving step by step to the front of this figure. Suddenly, he felt like he was seeing stars. In that instant, It was as if there were countless, huge hammers hammering on his head, hammering on his heart. His body, bones, heart, and soul were all smashed into pieces. Ninth brother. Ninth brother, ah! Bear Mountain didn't dare to believe his own eyes. He rubbed his eyes and suddenly roared crazily towards the sky. The person in front of him was really Ninth brother, the king of the skies, Eagle King. A perfectly round pillar of blood spurted out from his mouth with a puff. Eagle King's badly damaged body was still standing there coldly, his face cold and stern, his eyes fierce and stubborn. His body was still leaning forward slightly, as if he would explode at any moment. And in order to protect his brother, he would make the sharpest and most fatal attack. Ninth brother. Bear Mountain trembled as he stretched out his hands, wanting to hug his brother in front of him. But he didn't dare to, afraid that he would disturb his brother's final peace. Brother. Little Eagle. Ah! Bear Mountain howled towards the sky, feeling his heart shattering into pieces at this moment. He was older than Eagle King by more than 20 years. He still remembered that when Ninth brother was born, he was still a medium-sized bear cub. He squatted in front of the nest, looking at the milky white eagle egg and listening to the pecking sounds coming from it. Then, the eggshell suddenly cracked, and a small sharp beak appeared. Then, it was a wet, yellow-brown little eagle. Like a little chick, it crawled out, its timid eyes looking curiously at that world. That was Ninth brother's first look. His brother for life. When Ninth brother gradually grew up and could fly, he gradually advanced and finally became a ninth-level Xian beast like himself. He climbed to the pinnacle and was able to take human form. What a long time it was, and what a nostalgic period of time it was. All along, among all the brothers, he and Tiger King got along the best. That was because both of them were equally bold and impetuous. As for Ninth brother, they had been quarreling with each other since they had yet to transform. They had quarreled for hundreds of years, and they had quarreled for almost half of their lives. Even until today, not long ago, they were still quarreling. Bear King's thoughts were like smoke, slowly going back. He still remembered that on the way here, Bear King was sitting on Eagle King's back, and both of them were burning with anxiety. Bear King, smelly little eagle, you're flying so slowly. Will we reach the pillar of heaven's mountains? Eagle King, why don't you fly instead? Damn it, come down. I can fly twice as fast. You and the saber together weigh 2,000 caddies. A bear is a bear. Bear King, why don't I throw this saber down and only bring the sword with me? Eagle King, Bullsh asterisk T. To be able to bring this saber up, it's definitely a sharp weapon. What nonsense are you spouting before the battle? It's been so many years, and you haven't improved at all. Bear King, I'm your fourth brother, and you F asterisk King scolded me for life. Don't you have a guilty conscience? Eagle King, guilty my asterisk SS. As he thought about it, Bear Mountain's eyes filled with tears. Little Eagle, how I wish I could quarrel with you again. His thoughts were flying, and he felt like he was still sitting on Eagle King's back. Eagle King's voice became serious. Fourth brother, this battle is a matter of life and death. You must not be rash. Even if you can't control your temper, you must. Bear King laughed heartily. Ninth brother, I understand. But you must take care of yourself. Don't worry. Even if I have to risk my life, I will let you return to Tion FA safely. Bullsh asterisk T. Eagle King was furious. Who wants you to risk your life? What kind of demoralizing words are you saying at this time? After saying that, Eagle King said something in a low voice. At that time, the clouds were floating past him, and Bear Mountain was feeling relaxed and happy. He looked around randomly, but he didn't hear what Eagle King said clearly. Now that he thought about it, Big Bear felt as if there was still a sky full of clouds beneath his feet, beside him, and beside his ears. The sound of the wind whistling, and the words that the Eagle King had said that he hadn't heard clearly had suddenly become like a clap of thunder in his ears. Fourth brother, even if I have to risk this life of mine, I will not let you die. Today, Eagle King used his own life to fulfill this vow. Anyone who suffered such a heavy injury would have died long ago. They would have died tens of times, hundreds of times. But Eagle King, this arrogant eagle of Tion Fa, held on with all his might, using an unknown source of strength to hold on until Bear King woke up. For no other reason but for my brother. Even if I have to die, I will not allow him to be hurt in front of me. Brother, 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 this is how it is. I would rather die than let you die. I would rather die first than see you get hurt in front of me. This is what it means to be a brother. Bear Mountain's heart was suddenly filled with grief. Ninth brother, it's me who implicated you. I had already made up my mind to ensure your safety, but in the end, it was you who used your own life to protect me. If you go, how can I, your fourth brother, endure it? How can I endure it? When the two of them were together, they quarreled all the time, but Bear King had never really gotten angry. He knew that this was a sign of the deep bond between brothers. Eagle King had never liked to talk much. He had always been very quiet, but towards him, he seemed to have an unspeakable dislike for him. That was because he hated iron for not becoming steel. Those quarrels, if they were not real brothers, who would say that? Sometimes he was indeed too naive, too stupid. Eagle King had always been worried that he would be at a disadvantage. Every time something happened to him, Eagle King would always rush to the front after scolding him. No matter what. No matter who was right or wrong. Today, it was still ninth brother, Little Eagle. In order to protect him, right in front of him, he finally shed his last drop of blood. For him. Even though he had died, his body was still protecting me, still worried about me. There was something sticky on his chest. Bear Mountain grabbed a handful of it, and it was bright red. This was ninth brother's blood. Bear Mountain's eyes suddenly became extremely ferocious. Ninth brother's blood can't be shed in vain. Definitely can't be shed in vain. Ninth brother, fourth brother, I've let you down. If only I could wake up a moment earlier. Just a moment would be enough. Looking at Eagle King's body full of thousands of holes, even his most important pair of wings was gone, and all around him there were steel-like feathers. The furthest was actually more than 10 feet away. Bear Mountain suddenly felt that it was difficult to breathe. In order to protect me, ninth brother, what kind of attack did he suffer? Such heavy injuries, it's even worse than death by 1,000 cuts. Ninth brother, Bear King finally let out a pained groan. He used all his heart, all his spirit, and all his blood to spit out these two words that tore at his guts. The Eagle King's body was still standing there indifferently, his eyes still looking around viciously, as if he was warning about something. Bear Mountain choked with sobs, suddenly turning his head to look at the 5 frenzy blade enduring earths not far away. His expression suddenly became calm, so calm that it was terrifying. On his temples, thick veins were throbbing. Chapter 1150. He was like a majestic mountain, moving slowly and stealthily, because if his footsteps were heavy, he would wake up the slumbering ninth brother. Ninth brother has already worked hard for his entire life, protecting me for his entire life. Now, at this moment, I must let him have a good sleep, a peaceful sleep. I cannot let anyone disturb him. Definitely not. It's you guys who injure my ninth brother. Bear Mountain's voice was low, like a volcano that was about to erupt at any moment. Injured, yes, injured. Ninth brother did not die. He will not die. Big Bear was stubbornly thinking in his heart, if someone dares to add the word death to ninth brother's name, I, your father, will tear them apart alive. No one is an exception. The 5 frenzy blade enduring earths suddenly felt as if their souls were trembling uncontrollably. An unprecedented pressure, as heavy as a mountain, heavily pressed down on their hearts. This feeling was as if an ancient beast had locked onto them. Furthermore, they did not have the slightest ability to break free and could only allow themselves to be slaughtered. His own life was no longer in his hands. So what if it is? One of the frenzy blade enduring earths wanted to laugh maniacally, but the voice that came out was like a cough. We're enemies. Could it be your ancestor? Anyone who dares to injure my brother deserves to die. Damn it! Bear Mountain roared, and his body suddenly spun. With an indescribable speed, he grabbed the strange race's man in his hands and squatted down. Following that, he punched the strange race's man's dantian viciously. With a loud bang, the ferocious fist force entered the male strange race's man's abdomen and rushed out from the female strange race's man's abdomen. It even brought along a chunk of her liver. First, the dantian was destroyed, causing him to lose the chance to turn into a spirit seed. With the dantian destroyed, his shin cultivation would also be reduced to nothing, but he did not die. One die. It's not that easy, because right now, dying was already a very extravagant thing. The fellow who injured my brother wants to die so easily? How could there be such a cheap thing? Bear King's heart was filled with destruction and brutality. Little Eagle, ninth brother, I will make all of the mutated humans here die with you. Bear Mountain said firmly in his heart. At this moment, Bear King only had one wish in his heart, and that was to avenge his ninth brother. Revenge. That was all. Bear Mountain's huge body flashed strangely once more, and yet another frenzy blade enduring earth landed in his hands. The two blades of this frenzy blade enduring earths slashed towards his vitals, but Bear Mountain didn't seem to see it at all. Pew. The two blades landed accurately on Bear Mountain's body at the same time. The blades cut into his flesh by 3 centimeters, just 3 centimeters, and then they couldn't go any deeper. Big Bear, who had already undergone the baptism of the lightning tribulation, was now a true Saint Venerable expert. The difference between him and this third-level Saint King was far too great. The difference was so great that it could not be calculated. For these two blades to cut into the flesh by 3 centimeters and injure the current Bear Mountain was already not an easy feat. But Bear Mountain's huge palms had already pierced through the two bodies of this frenzy blade enduring earths, smashing his dantian into smithereens. Then, with a casual twist of his hand, his waist bone was broken with a kacha sound, and he tossed the frenzy blade enduring earths to the ground. He was placed side by side with the other frenzy blade enduring earths. Following that, his blood-red eyes stared straight at the 3 frenzy blade enduring earths of the other strange races. His eyes were filled with the joy of revenge. The other 3 frenzy blade enduring earths had long been scared out of their wits. With a sudden howl, they turned around and fled, but their speed was simply too slow in the eyes of the current Bear King. With a loud roar, Bear King's body flashed 5 times, and with a series of banging sounds, another 6 blade scars appeared on Bear Mountain's body. But the other 3 frenzy blade enduring earths were also caught by him, their dantians destroyed, and thrown to the ground where the other 2 frenzy blade enduring earths were. A total of 5 frenzy blade enduring earths were now completely crippled, unable to live even if they wanted to, and unable to die even if they wanted to. After taking down the culprits, Bear Mountain slowly straightened his body and turned around. His eyes were filled with sorrow as he looked at his brothers. He did not dare to turn his head, nor could he bear to turn his head. Thus, he turned as slowly as possible. He was even hoping that the situation in front of him was just his 9th brother playing a prank on him. He hoped that if he turned a little slower, the Eagle King would suddenly pounce on him, slap him with his wings, and scold him for being an idiot. If that was the case, Bear King felt that he would definitely faint from happiness. It wouldn't matter even if he died from happiness. 9th brother, as long as you can wake up, 4th brother is willing to let you scold me for being an idiot for the rest of my life. 4th brother is willing to die for you. I'd rather die for you 10,000 times. As long as you can wake up. Just wake up. Bear King did not know that his thoughts were exactly the same as the Eagle King's. 4th brother, as long as you can wake up, I'm willing to die for you 10,000 times. No matter how slow he turned, there would still be an end to it. Bear King slowly turned his head and saw that the Eagle King was still standing straight. He only felt a lump in his throat and suddenly burst into tears. He cried so sadly that he squatted down and held his head tightly with his hands. Then he punched himself in the head again and again. "You damn bear! Why did you have to fall at such a critical moment? Why couldn't you hold on a little longer? You really deserve to die. You're the one who deserves to die. You deserve to die the most, ah." Bear Mountain's heart-wrenching cries were extremely unpleasant to hear, but it made everyone who heard them feel as if their organs were being torn apart. The Eagle King's tattered clothes hung on his body, fluttering in the wind. He still stood there coldly, indifferent to everything in the world. He did not even have the slightest reaction to his own brother's heart-wrenching cries. The Eagle of Tion-Fa. At this moment, it had already returned to eternity. "King!" Suddenly, a loud roar resounded in unison, shaking the vast sky. The sky instantly turned dark. Countless iron wings filled the sky, filling up the entire land. Countless black feathers covered the sky like clouds, covering the sun and the moon. Bear Mountain looked back in shock, only to see that the remaining less than 800 Tion-Fa Eagle people, regardless of whether they were heavily injured or lightly injured, had all returned to their original forms and flew into the sky. Their eyes were as calm and cold as the Eagle King's, distant and persistent. "What are you bastards trying to do? Are you rebelling?" Bear Mountain roared and stood up. "Come down for me." His voice suddenly choked, and he wailed. "Hurry up and come down for this, Daddy." Bear King had already guessed what they were trying to do. Facing the roar of the Beast King, all the eagles were completely unmoved. This was something that was completely impossible before. A black cloud slowly moved in the sky. Although it was messy, it was still densely packed with the outsider's grand formation, slowly moving towards it, with a pressure as vast and heavy as a mountain. Although it was moving very slowly, it was filled with determination. If the king dies, he dies. No matter what, the Eagle of Tion-Fa will always have his brothers and clansmen following him. He will still be the king of the skies. No matter where you go, King, we will follow you, together in life and death. Eagle 17, F*CK, your grandmother. Don't mess around. Hurry up and come down for this, Daddy. Come down. Come down. Bear Mountain screamed madly. He was so anxious that he spat out a mouthful of blood. The leading eagle lowered his head and looked at Bear Mountain. Then, his resolute eyes locked onto his king. Silently and indifferently, he said, "Bear King, don't say any more. This is a matter of the eagle people. The king has fallen. The king has fallen alone. He needs his followers." The king of the eagle people, even if it's the Yellow Springs underworld, he will still have his followers. Once the king, forever the overlord. The pride of the eagle people will not allow their king to go on his journey alone. We want to accompany our king. Whether it's the 9 underworlds or the Yellow Springs, we will still fight side by side. His voice was calm and flat. There was no sorrow, no pain, and no hysteria. It was as if he was talking about something insignificant. Bear Mountain's majestic body trembled helplessly. Looking at the group of eagles in the sky, he suddenly felt a stabbing pain in his heart. Helplessness. It's all because of me. If not for me, Ninth Brother would not have gone to that place where he could never return. These Eagle People brothers would not have followed their king through life and death. It's all because of me, Bear King cried as he looked at the slowly moving group of eagles in the sky. Suddenly, he roared and knelt down, kowtowing crazily. Brothers, this old bear is begging you. I beg you, come down, woo-woo." In the sky, Eagle 17's sharp eyes shone with deep emotions. But he still said resolutely, "Bear King, you are the king of Tion-Fa. Not a single citizen of Tion-Fa can withstand your kowtow. But at this moment, please forgive me for disobeying your orders. The king is waiting for me. I must go. I cannot let the king go on his journey alone. In the Yellow Springs, there will be enemies. How can we let our king go alone? Bastard, there are so many strange races here, and the war for seizing the heavens in the future. And, in any case, you have many responsibilities on your shoulders. You bastard thing, Why you? I beg you, come down, come down. I want to kill you, you bastard. My blood brothers, come down. Bear Mountain kowtowed repeatedly. He didn't even know what he was saying anymore. He begged incoherently and cried in grief. The king of Tion Fa had never shed a tear in his life, nor had he knelt before anyone. But at this moment, he had made an exception. But he could not win back the hearts of the Eagle people. The king of their race had always been a supreme existence in their hearts. No one could replace him. I'm sorry. The war for seizing the heavens no longer has any meaning to us. The lives of the world are also meaningless to us. We came here for the glory of Tion Fa, the glory of the Xian beasts. For the sake of following our king, let's fight to our heart's content. Other than that, we have no other requests. Now the king is gone. We naturally have to go as well. The lives of the world, in our eyes, are not even comparable to a single hair of our king. They are not worthy. The pride and arrogance of us Eagle people is unparalleled in the world. We only fight for the Eagle people, for the Eagle King. We want our king to be as proud as ever, even in the underworld. Eagle 17 said indifferently. Lord Bear King, all the bear brothers who fought alongside you, we will meet again in our next lives. Let us Eagle people once again shine as the tyrants of the skies for our Tion Fa holy land. Chapter 11:51. After saying that, Eagle 17 did not say anything else. In fact, he did not even look at the ground. A total of 800 Xian eagles let out a resonant cry at the same time. A long eagle cry pierced through the clouds, straight into the 9 heavens. Following that, 800 Xian eagles raised their heads and let out a long cry. In the midst of the raging winds and clouds, Eagle 17, who was at the front, suddenly raised his head and flew high into the sky. His posture was proud and resolute. 800 Xian eagles followed behind him, piercing through the clouds. When they reached their peak, the group of Xian eagles in the sky had already become a small black dot. Eagle 17 suddenly stopped rising. Following that, he pierced through the clouds with a shrill cry, his body shining with a golden light as he dove down. King, I'm coming. How can you not bring me along when you go? We said before that we will follow you for generations to come. The cry of the 9 heavens, the blood of the Xian eagle, the soul of the Xian eagle. This was the forbidden move of the Eagle people. Every time it was used, it required the combined strength of over 100 peak level 9 Xian eagles. The moment it was used, it would mean that they would perish together with the enemy. The power of this move naturally far exceeded the self-destruction of ordinary Xian beasts. This was also the only way for the Eagle King's guards to send off their own king. Only the greatest king of the Eagle people could receive such treatment from the Eagle people. Before this, such a thing had only happened once in the last 10,000 years. That time was 8,000 years ago. No! Bear Mountain screamed in despair, his entire body trembling. At this moment, the one who wanted to die the most was him. The one who wanted to die with his brothers the most was him. But he could not die yet. The mission of this trip had not been completed yet. Behind him, there were still over 1,000 bear brothers looking at him. Bear Mountain believed that as long as he died, these 1,000 bear warriors would also follow him like these Xian eagles. As for the war for seizing the heavens, or the lives of the continent, they did not care. This was the absolute loyalty of a tribe. Only among Xian beasts would such a thing happen. So reckless, so proud, and so infatuated. Therefore, Bear Mountain could not die. At least not now. But his teeth had already bitten through his lower lip. Fresh blood gushed out. Her eyes were misty with tears. His heart had already been broken into pieces. He knelt on the ground, his hands clutching the ground tightly. His entire body was convulsing and trembling. Suddenly, he bent down, opened his mouth, and bit a large lump of bloody soil on the ground. He choked with sobs, and endless hot tears flowed down his cheeks. My king is mighty, eternal Tion Fa. Following behind Eagle 17 was a group of black eagles, their bodies glowing with a golden light as they swooped down without hesitation. His flying posture was still arrogant and confident, stable and calm. Their formation was still neat. Although the king was no longer here, Wang Ming could not be embarrassed. Even in death, they had to be neat and tidy. That way, when he reached the other world, he would be able to immediately form a powerful fighting force. Fight for the king. Tend to a group, they still followed the formation that the king had arranged for them. They swooped down in different directions, but they would definitely land in the densest area of the strange races. Facing such a suicidal attack from high up in the sky, no one could dodge it. Extremely violent explosions rang out one after another. It far exceeded any of the previous self-detonations. Such a horrifying wave of attack shook the world. The world was turned upside down, and the earth was shaking. In the sky, there were still countless golden figures resolutely rushing down from the highest point. Silently, with their loyalty to their king, they rushed into the dense crowd of non-humankind beings and launched the most terrifying, most violent explosive attack. The Eagle people had officially used such a unique and heroic method to send off their king, using their own lives to compose a song of eternal loyalty that would be followed forever. The lives of tens of thousands of strange races. They were the sacrifices to send off the eternal king of the sky. The Eagle King's majestic body still stood proudly, emotionless, his expression cold. Although his eyes were dim and lifeless, they were still as sharp as ever, as though he had seen through the endless void in front of him, opening up a wide path for his brothers. The earth-shattering explosions finally came to an end. From the center of the explosion, there was not a single person in a radius of several thousand zhang. There was only nothingness left. In this unprecedentedly intense series of explosions, at least 50,000 strange races have been completely turned into ashes. 9 heavens eagle cries absolute jade blood, burning the heavens and destroying the earth eagle soul. This ultimate forbidden technique that had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, its power was truly shocking and terrifying. Yes, 800 black eagles had used their own bodies to compose a heroic song of eternal loyalty. Even if they were to die, even if they had decided to self-detonate, they were still afraid of harming the Bear brothers who had fought alongside them, so they had chosen to stand further away. Their explosions had actually split the entire battlefield into two. Only the two ends were left. Regardless of life or death, the only thing they could not let go of was still their brothers. Brothers who had also originated from Tian Fa. A patch of blood suddenly appeared in the sky, slowly forming into a blood-red eagle. It soared into the sky, disappearing calmly into the clouds. Under such a terrifying attack, the number of the strange race's troops that managed to survive by luck numbered less than 10,000, and all of them had lost all their will to fight. The remaining bear warriors were more than enough to deal with them. The previously ferocious strange race's army, which had the absolute advantage in numbers, had already been turned into scorched earth. So the Eagle people were very at ease as they went. They were very at ease as they continued to accompany their king, galloping forward, soaring through the skies, looking down on everything. Take revenge for the Eagle people brothers. Take revenge for the Eagle people brothers. Take revenge for the Eagle people brothers. For all the Eagle tribe brothers who had sacrificed themselves. Everyone kill. In the distance, the bear warriors charged wildly, all of them with tears streaming down their faces as they chased after the remaining strange races. The outcome was already decided, but they would not let any of their enemies go. All the Tian Fa warriors were extremely violent and crazed. The remaining less than 10,000 strange races soldiers were all scared out of their wits, fleeing in all directions. The enemies in front had all been annihilated by the bear warriors, unable to escape the fate of annihilation. The few thousand strange races soldiers on the other side were a little luckier. After all, The distance between the two sides was rather far, and they were lucky enough to retreat into the strange race's continents, too terrifying. This was a nightmare. These Tion Fa warriors were even scarier than the rumors, even scarier than nightmares. Bear Mountain Shan slowly crawled to his feet, looking at the Eagle King's unfalling body in a daze, looking at his good brother, who had accompanied him his entire life. Suddenly, tears streamed down his face. With tears streaming down his face, he staggered over, carefully hugging the Eagle King's broken body tightly into his embrace, as if afraid of hurting his little brother. Although the Eagle King no longer felt anything. "Little Eagle, wait for me. Fourth brother will bring you home, bring you back to Tion Fa." Bear Mountain Shan carefully and cautiously carried the Eagle King up and laid him flat. Stroking the Eagle King's cold face tenderly, he said in a low voice, "Little Eagle, I've captured all those strange race's soldiers who harmed you. How do you want to deal with them?" He tilted his head, as if he was still talking to his brother. As if he had heard something, he nodded and said, "And I know, with your habits, the habits of the Eagle people, you will definitely tear them apart alive. I understand. Little Eagle, fourth brother will help you vent your anger and take revenge for you." Bear Mountain Shan smiled pitifully, standing up slowly. Turning his head, he glared fiercely at one of the strange race's soldiers. With a wave of his hand, a strong suction force pulled this trembling frenzy blade enduring earth over. With one hand holding his body in place, the other hand slowly reached out and pinched his finger. Exerting a little force, he slowly pulled his finger out and finally pulled it off. The strange race's soldiers' wretched cries were so shrill that they didn't sound like a human's voice. It was earth-shattering. His Xian cultivation had already been crippled, and facing Bear Mountain Shan's cruel torture, he had no way to resist. Even death was a luxury, and he couldn't faint even if he wanted to, because the moment he fainted, Bear Mountain would send a wave of Xian Qi to stimulate his nerves, waking him up immediately. This was to ensure that he could maintain his consciousness throughout the entire process. Only wretched cries and curses could be heard one after another. Bear Mountain Shan was unmoved. He stretched out his hand and grabbed another finger, slowly pulling it tight. With a reminiscing smile, he said, "Little Eagle, once, when we were secretly drinking the Monkey King's wine, you once said, 'When would we be able to reach the peak?'" He laughed, tearing off the strange race's soldier's finger amidst the wretched cries. He said to the Eagle King, "Do you still remember when I said that one day we would all be able to reach the peak?" Then you laughed. "Do you still remember that time, because you stole wine? Your head was scratched by the Monkey King's mount, and your face was disfigured? It was so embarrassing. An eagle's face was disfigured by a monkey cub." He laughed happily as he reminisced, as if the Eagle King was still sitting in front of him, accompanying him to drink the monkey wine that he had stolen. Blood flowed from his head, but he was in high spirits. Just like that, he recalled all the bits and pieces of the past. Bit by bit, right in front of the Eagle King, he tore apart the 5 frenzy blade enduring earths that had harmed the Eagle King, piece by piece. After that, he shifted his body and sat beside the Eagle King, saying in a low voice, "Little Eagle, Big Brother has already avenged you. But why haven't you woken up yet? Why haven't you woken up yet? Fourth brother will not quarrel with you anymore. You can scold me all you want, all right? Quickly sit up, quickly get up, Little Eagle. Little Eagle, wake up. Fourth brother will not snatch anything from you in the future. You can drink the monkey wine first, brother-in-law's wine. Fourth brother will give it all to you. Get up, quickly get up, All of a sudden, Bear Mountain fell to the ground, crying bitterly. "What do you want me to do for you to wake up? Say it, say it, say it. I've agreed to everything. Why aren't you getting up yet?" A few Bear Tribe warriors walked over with tears all over their faces, saying sorrowfully, "King, please restrain your grief. Lord Eagle King has already passed for thousands of years. King, please restrain your grief." These words were spoken with a thick nasal tone, and as they spoke, their own tears also began to fall. Bear Mountain suddenly flew into a rage, jumping up and kicking the Bear Tribe warrior to the ground, shouting crazily, "Your mother's fart! What? What nonsense did you say just now? What already passed for thousands of years? Bastard! My brother is not dead. My brother is not dead. He is not dead. My brother will not die no matter what." Bear Mountain roared. Tears of blood flowed out. Then he roared again. "He will never die." Then he suddenly spat out a mouthful of bright red blood, and his sturdy body suddenly fell to the ground. Chapter 1152. In the distant skies, there were two white figures speeding through the skies like shooting stars. Just now, for some reason, Mei Xuyan suddenly felt uneasy, unable to calm down. Ever since Bear King, Eagle King, and the other 8 Saint Venerables set off, Mei Xuyan's heart had never been at ease. It was just that when Jun Moxie set off with her, he had sent Mei Xuyan into the world of the Hongjun Pagoda, cutting off all information. Mei Xuyan also knew the severity of this matter, so she calmed herself down in the Hongjun Pagoda. She had to ensure that she was in her best condition to deal with all the things that might happen in the future. Later on, they coincidentally met with the experts of Heaven's Saint Palace surrounding Zhang Lunhui, and the two of them joined in the battle. Mei Xuyan did not make an official appearance in this battle, but her assistance to Jun Moxie was definitely not inferior to Gu Han's. In fact, she even surpassed him. Because she was so focused on this battle, her heart was as calm as still water. But after the battle had just ended, he actually didn't have the slightest bit of delight from defeating such a peerless expert. Instead, he felt waves of panic in his heart. Moreover, the bad feeling actually grew stronger and stronger. He only felt his heart palpitate with fear, and his thoughts were chaotic and clueless to the extreme. After separating from Heaven's Saint Palace's Gu Han and the rest, they went to search for the remnants of the 3 Holy Lands. And Mei Xuyan immediately urged Jun Moxie to hurry, flying towards the pillar of Heaven's mountains as if her life depended on it. There was almost no delay, to the point where Jun Moxie did not even have the time to take a sip of water and catch his breath, flying over just like that. The area occupied by the Pillar of Sky Mountains was simply too vast. The huge ruins were already in sight from afar. For some reason, the closer they got to the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, the more anxious Mei Xuyan became. There was an indescribable sense of sorrow and pain, as if she was extremely anxious but extremely timid, not daring to enter that area. This was a very subtle psychology. Even Mei Xuyan herself didn't know what was going on. There were clearly many of his brothers and elders waiting for him to rush to the rescue, but he could faintly feel that there was also endless sorrow waiting for him to go there, waiting to give him a heavy blow. As they got closer and closer to their destination, Mei Xuyan's body strangely felt weak, and it seemed like she could no longer fly. "What's wrong?" Jun Moxie looked at her in surprise. Mei Xuyan's usually jade-like face was frighteningly pale at this moment, without the slightest trace of blood. Her lips were also trembling. Could it be that she had expended too much energy fighting Zhang Lunhui? However, that shouldn't be the case. "My body is fine, but my heart feels terrible. I don't know what's going on." Mei Xuyan composed herself and shook her head. She frowned. "I actually have an ominous feeling. Am I worrying for nothing?" The usually calm and composed Mei Xuyan suddenly asked this question. Clearly, she hoped that Jun Moxie could give her a definite answer, a show of support from his lover. Jun Mo sucked in a deep breath and said, "This kind of illusory feeling, how can it be accurate?" Actually, when Jun Moxie said this, his heart also skipped a beat. Similar to the ominous feeling that Mei Xuyan had, he had also felt at the moment he entered the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains. But he didn't say it out loud, fearing that Mei Xuyan would be too worried. This was a kind of telepathy and also an intuition towards danger that had been honed by an assassin. Once this feeling appeared, something was definitely going to happen. Jun Moxie was almost certain that something big must have happened on the side of the Eagle Bear Coalition army. Right now, he was burning with anxiety. But in front of Mei Xuyan, he didn't dare to show it, not even a little bit. He believed that if he showed that kind of anxiety Before they even reached their destination, Mei Shuyan would probably break down first. Eagle King, Bear King, the 8 great Saint Masters. Who were they? They were the closest people to Mei Shuyan, especially Eagle King, Bear King, who was Mei Shuyan's brother for so many years. This kind of relationship was even closer than blood brothers. It was even more than blood brothers. If something really happened to them, it would definitely be a devastating blow to Mei Shuyan. As a man, his woman's support. Although Jun Mo Xie's heart was in turmoil, on the surface, he still had to act as if nothing had happened. He still had to do everything he could to comfort Mei Shuyan. This was also a man's responsibility. But facing Mei Shuyan's sudden question, Jun Moxie knew that he couldn't give his lover too much hope. Otherwise, it would only cause her more burden in the future. It was better to let her suffer for a while than to let her suffer for a lifetime. Shuyan, your current condition is not ideal. It's better for you to enter the pagoda and recover. Let me fly you. Jun Moxie suggested cautiously. If Mei Shuyan agreed to enter, then it would be easier. The Hongjun Pagoda could isolate all the outside world. If something bad really happened, Mei Shuyan wouldn't be there, so the impact on her would not be as direct. If she told her in the future, it would be much more diluted. This was the best way to compromise. No. Mei Shuyan rejected firmly. I want to see my brothers. I want my brothers from Tian Fa to be able to see me at the first glance. I am their big sister. No matter what happens, I will bear it for them. After saying that, she gritted her teeth and increased her speed. This speed had already surpassed her usual fastest speed. Jun Moxie sighed and followed behind her silently. Although he knew that Mei Shuyan's actions would only hurt herself, he couldn't stop her. But in his heart, he thought to himself, yes, no matter what happens, you, as their big sister, can bear it for them and help them share their burden. But in this world, there are always some things that no one can bear. Not even you. There were some things that had to be faced that couldn't be avoided, nor could they be avoided. Right now, Jun Moxie could only pray silently, hoping that this blow would not be too heavy, or perhaps it was not too pessimistic. After all, there were volcanoes erupting all around them. The chances of the strange races coming over at this time was not very high. Even the evil monarch, Jun Moxie, could only console himself like this. The two of them increased their speed at the same time. They were clearly still quite a distance away from their destination, but they could already smell the thick stench of blood. One had to know that the wind right now was a level 9 hurricane. Moreover, the two of them were in the limelight, practically riding the wind. But even though they were so far away from the battlefield and the wind was against them, they could still smell the thick stench of blood. Mei Shuyan's face turned even paler. She bit her lips and flew forward with all her might. Suddenly, her figure froze in the sky. Her eyes were filled with panic and helplessness. She cried out shrilly, "Little eagle!" Her eyes stared blankly at a certain spot in the sky in front of her. Jun Moxie looked over, and his eyes narrowed. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. There was a ball of blood mist there, and it slowly soared into the sky before condensing into the shape of a matchlessly enormous eagle that blotted out the heavens and the earth. It had iron wings, a sharp beak, sharp claws, and golden eyes, and it carried a proud and aloof aura that looked down upon all living beings as it flew towards the horizon without the slightest reluctance to leave. In the blink of an eye, it had completely disappeared into the clouds. Mei Shuyan raised her head and looked blankly at the huge eagle disappearing. Suddenly, she let out a heart-wrenching scream, and her body trembled. She staggered in the air and almost fell down. But she quickly steadied herself and shot forward like an arrow, flying with all her might. The speed of her movement was unimaginably fast, indescribably fast. Jun Moxie's face instantly turned green. A blood-red color suddenly appeared in his eyes. Eagle King. Did he go? His body flashed, and he used the yin-yang escape to catch up. The intense battle on the huge battlefield had already ended. Silence. The ground was covered in smoke. Broken limbs and broken bodies stretched as far as the eye could see. Countless heads had already rolled off their necks, rolling in the wind. Their eyes were still wide open in anger. The thick stench of blood in the air was almost suffocating. This was no longer an ordinary battlefield. It was more like a battle between gods and demons, causing the destruction of the world. There were less than 1,000 bear warriors left. They formed a large circle and knelt down silently towards the center of the circle. They were protecting the king of their tribe who had fallen into a coma due to excessive heartache. They were also paying the most respectful and sincere respects to the king of the eagle people who had already sacrificed himself. No one cried out, and no one cried. The battlefield was filled with blood mist, but it was deathly silent. It was like a hell filled with blood. But this kind of indescribable silence made it hard for one to breathe. This kind of extremely oppressive and sorrowful atmosphere seemed to be able to crush one's heart. A mournful cry pierced through the air. All the bear warriors raised their heads in unison, looking in the direction of the cry. Their eyes were filled with agitation. That was Big Sister's voice. Big Sister is here. A white figure flashed, and Mei Shuyan fell from the sky like a meteor. The powerful impact caused the large rocks on the ground to fly into the air. When she landed, even with Mei Shuyan's cultivation, she still staggered a few steps. But she did not hesitate at all. She sprinted towards the center of the circle formed by the bear warriors. She ran too quickly. Even the scarf that she had tied up her hair had been blown away by the wind. Her beautiful long hair fluttered in the wind, but she did not notice it at all. When she reached the front of the circle formed by the crowd, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. She suddenly stopped. There was no other reason. She was afraid. Afraid that she would really see something that she did not wish to see. The bear warriors looked at her silently. The usually slow bear warriors suddenly understood what Mei Shuyan was thinking at this moment. All the warriors' eyes slowly filled with tears, and they remained silent. Mei Shuyan's heart also fell into a bottomless abyss, sinking and sinking. Chapter 1153. All the bear tribe warriors knelt neatly and raised their heads to look at Mei Shuyan. No one answered. All of them lowered their heads at the same time. Some of them were already sobbing uncontrollably. There were a total of 6,000 brothers. Why are there only a few of you left? Tell me, where are the others? Have they gone to search for traces of the enemy? Mei Shuyan looked at these wounded brothers in a daze. She mumbled a reason that even she herself did not believe. Still, no one answered. Mei Shuyan suddenly yelled in an extremely shrill voice. Why aren't you answering me? Where are the other brothers? Where did they go? Where's Eagle King? Where's Bear King? Where the hell did you two bastards go? Say something. Answer me. Right now, Mei Shuyan no longer had any of her usual composure. She no longer had the demeanor of a Tian Fa Empress. She was on the verge of breaking down in hysteria. A figure flashed. Jun Moxie landed beside Mei Shuyan with an ashen face. The warriors remained silent, but they finally opened up a path in unison. Jun Moxie moved again and stood in front of Mei Shuyan, blocking her line of sight. He stared fixedly at Mei Shuyan and said with a trembling voice, Shuyan, get out of the way. Mei Shuyan raised her head angrily. Her originally beautiful eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. Jun Moxie, get out of the way. Seeing that Jun Moxie was still looking at her pitifully and had no intention of moving, Mei Shuyan was completely enraged. She roared, get out of the way. Her voice actually changed in pitch. The usually gentle, steady, and magnanimous Mei Shuyan actually looked like she was about to start a fight at the slightest disagreement. I want to go see my brothers. No one could stop him. Jun Moxie sighed sadly and lowered his head, but he still didn't move. If Shui Yin can vent on me, then let her vent on me. Mei Shuyan was stunned for a moment. Her body suddenly moved, and she quickly passed by Jun Moxie. Immediately, a heartbroken cry came from behind Jun Moxie. Mei Shuyan raised her head to the sky and roared. Her aura suddenly spread out from her body. Her voice was like the cry of an ape or the cry of a cuckoo, hollow and distant. Everyone who heard her voice was infected by the sorrow in her heart. Even if he didn't know what had happened, he could clearly feel what it felt like to have his heart broken. In the center of the circle, Eagle King's broken body lay quietly on the ground. Beside him, Bear King was covered in blood. His mouth was also stained with scarlet blood as he lay next to him. The only difference was that Eagle King's body didn't have any signs of life, and Bear King was still breathing weakly. Mei Shuiyan's tragic cry caused Bear Mountain, who was in a semi-conscious state due to extreme sorrow, to suddenly wake up. The moment he woke up, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He jumped up and looked around frantically. Big sister is here. Quick, 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 save little eagle. Save little eagle. He spoke incoherently and frantically begged for help. Mei Shuiyan was right in front of him, but he acted as if he didn't see her. Little eagle. Mei Shuiyan's delicate body trembled violently, as if she was struck by lightning. Sparkling and translucent tears slowly flowed down her cheeks and dripped onto the ground. She walked over slowly and gently. Her movements were unusually gentle and slow, as if she was afraid to disturb her little brother's deep sleep. Step by step, it was only a few steps, but Mei Shuiyan seemed to have used up all her strength. Finally, she reached Eagle King's side. She slowly bent down and touched Eagle King's cold but proud face with her trembling fingers. She murmured, "Little eagle, big sister is here. Big sister is here to see you. Don't be afraid. Big sister is here. Don't be afraid." Mei Shuiyan reached out and slowly hugged Eagle King's cold body in her arms. She hugged him tightly and said, "Little brother, why are you always so naughty? The ground is so cold and dirty. Don't you feel uncomfortable lying here? Quick, get up. Big sister will hug you." Her snow-white dress was instantly stained with blood. Eagle King's body grew bigger. Mei Shuiyan hugged him in her arms, but her legs were still dangling on the ground. She walked slowly with Eagle King in her arms, as if she was sleepwalking. "Little eagle, brother, big sister will bring you home. Bring you home. Don't be afraid, be good." She suddenly staggered, but she stubbornly stood up straight, trying her best to maintain the stability of the body in her arms. Her face was flushed red, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Just as she was about to take a step forward, her legs gave out and she fell to her knees. Her eyes closed and she fainted. Although Mei Shuiyan had fainted, her hands were still hugging her brother's body tightly, refusing to let go. As the saying goes, a sister-in-law is like a mother. In the Tian family, as the big sister, Mei Shuiyan's role was similar to that of the other Beast King's mother. In fact, she was even more important. These brothers were all younger than Mei Shuiyan. They had been led by Mei Shuiyan since they were young, growing up step by step. It was unknown how much effort Mei Shuiyan had put into her. From a fledgling to a king of the skies, an overlord of the generation, Mei Shuiyan could be said to have witnessed their entire lives. Every time they fell, it was Mei Shuiyan who would help them up. Every time they succeeded, it was Mei Shuiyan who shared their joy. Every achievement came from Mei Shuiyan's teachings. And every time these brothers had something sad or happy, the first person they would think of to talk to was this big sister. And now, Eagle King was lying coldly in Mei Shuiyan's arms. Facing the big sister that he respected and loved the most, he could no longer hear it. Mei Shuiyan felt as if her heart was being torn apart. He had been smashed into pieces while still alive, dripping with blood. After a long time, Mei Shuiyan woke up and realized that she was leaning on Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie's deep eyes were looking at her warmly. They were filled with love, pain, and killing intent. Big sister, big sister. Bear Mountain cried and pounced in front of Mei Shuiyan. He suddenly kowtowed crazily. "Big sister, kill me. I don't want to live anymore. I really don't want to live anymore. Little eagle, ninth brother, they all died to save me. I didn't protect ninth brother well, and even drag little ninth down. I deserve to die. I'm the one who deserves to die. Why didn't I die?" Bear King's body twitched, and he suddenly knelt down. He slapped his own face. "I'll beat you to death. I'll beat you to death. You damn bear, you killed my ninth brother, my ninth brother." He slapped so hard that in just a few times, the bear's head was already a bloody mess. Mei Shuyan looked at the sky blankly. After a long time, she finally lowered her head and her eyes started to focus again. She looked lovingly at Eagle King in her arms and couldn't help but shed hot tears. Then, she raised her head and looked at Bear King. Her voice was trembling, but it was unusually firm. "Stand up," Bear Mountain cried, as if he had no bones in his body. "A man bleeds, but not tears. Stand up. Be a man and stand up. Bear Mountain, don't make me look down on you again." Mei Shuyan's tears flowed down her face quietly, but her voice was calm. "Just now, you said that ninth brother died because he saved you. Then, I don't want ninth brother to save a good-for-nothing like you. If that happens, I will feel sorry for him." Mei Shuyan's eyes suddenly opened wide, and she shouted, "Bear Mountain, stand up." This strict order actually caused the ground beneath everyone's feet to tremble. Bear Mountain's body trembled. He jumped up and stood up straight. Mei Shuyan's eyes were red. She looked at him fiercely and said in a low voice, "Ninth brother is dead. He died to save you. What will you do? Tell me." Bear Mountain gritted his teeth and said without hesitation, "If I die in this battle, I will definitely reunite with ninth brother. But even if I survive, I will find ninth brother after the battle. But even if I am lucky enough to survive, I will look for ninth brother after the battle. Even if I die in the underworld, I, Bear Mountain, will still be ninth brother's fourth brother. I will always be..." Bang! Mei Shuyan was so angry that her whole body was trembling. First, she gave Big Bear a heavy slap on the face, causing him to spin around in a circle. But that was not enough to vent her anger, so she gave Big Bear a vicious kick on his chest. Then, Big Bear's sturdy body flew out, as if he was riding on a cloud, and fell heavily to the ground. "Very good. Very good. Bear Mountain, good job. Good job." Mei Shuyan was so angry that her voice was shaking. She nodded and said, "Ninth brother risked his life to save you. So, he wanted you to kill yourself to accompany him. Hee, Bear Mountain, good job. Good job. What a deep brotherly bond. I admire you." Every time she said a sentence, she would kick Bear Mountain. She hit him so hard that he was rolling on the ground. Blood kept coming out of his mouth. But Mei Shuyan did not stop. Every punch landed on flesh, and there was no mercy. Even Jun Mo Xie was taken aback. He had never seen Mei Shuyan throw such a tantrum before. But Jun Mo Xie could not stop her, and he could not even try to persuade her to calm down. Finally, Mei Shuyan grabbed Big Bear's chest and threw him to the ground. Then, she dragged him to the front of Eagle King as if she was dragging a dead dog. She abruptly let go of him and said sternly with a pale face, "Ask Little Eagle. Ask ninth brother. Why did he save you? Why did he risk his life to save you? Bear Mountain, your life was exchanged with ninth brother's. Ask him if he is willing to die. Is your life still yours? Do you have a right to decide?" Big Bear looked at Eagle King's face and suddenly let out a muffled cry. Then he froze. "If you think that you are worthy of ninth brother, you can die now." Mei Shuyan looked at him and said, "I will not stop you." After saying that, he threw a large saber in front of Bear King. Chapter 1154. Go to hell. Go to hell. Go to hell. Why aren't you dead yet? Mei Shuyan Langling looked at him, tears gushing out of her eyes. Her body trembled, but she said resolutely, "Why aren't you dead yet? Don't you have the guts? You want me to send you off? No problem, just say the word. I don't want a bastard brother like you." This time, Jun Moxie was a little anxious. Shuyan's words were a little too much. Bear Mountain was a straightforward person. For his brother, he would die just like that. What if he couldn't turn the corner? I'm not going to die. Big Bear suddenly calmed down and slowly stood up. He stood up slowly, and his eyes became calm. "You don't want to die?" Mei Shuyan looked at him. Langling said, "You don't want to die now? Are you thinking of doing something during the battle? Hmm. Are you going to die to save Crane King? Then Crane King will die to save Tiger King. Tiger King will die to... Then the last one will die to save me. And I will kill myself. Then we will all die. It will be great to reunite in the netherworld. Don't you want that? Bear Mountain's body trembled. He looked at Mei Shuyan pleadingly and said, Big sister, please, please don't say that. I feel terrible. I feel terrible. Please don't say anymore. Yes, Bear King's thoughts were exposed by Mei Shuyan. Of course, he didn't want everyone to die, but he already had the will to die. The moment Eagle King died to save Bear King, Bear Mountain already had nothing to live for. At that moment, he really didn't want to live anymore. But that time, he couldn't die. Moreover, Bear King couldn't stop worrying about his brother. Therefore, he decided that he would fight even harder in the upcoming battle. He would try his best to protect his brother's survival at all costs, just like what Eagle King did for him. Then, if he could die to save his brother, then he could die in peace. The sworn brotherhood of the Tian Fa King brothers was not in vain. However, after hearing Mei Shuyan's words, Bear Mountain felt his blood run cold from the bottom of his heart. Fear and panic rose in his heart. Indeed, the Eagle King had died to save him today, and he was heartbroken to this extent. Then, if he were to die for the sake of his other brothers in the future, wouldn't they be in the same situation as he was now, living a life worse than death? Putting oneself in someone else's shoes, everyone was the same. Could it be that, like what Big Sister said, everyone had to die? Reunite in the Yellow Springs? No, I don't want to do this. I can't do this. But if his brother was in danger, could he just stand by and do nothing? No, I can't do it. How could he do that? For a moment, Bear King's heart was in a mess, and he couldn't even speak. Between brothers, there is nothing that needs to be exchanged. Zhu Moxie said quietly, The Eagle King sacrificed himself for you. His intention was definitely not for you to repay him with your body. Could it be that in your heart, isn't sacrificing for other brothers something that you should do? Do you understand? This is how brothers should be. He's your brother, and he should do anything for you. Conversely, for your brother, it is natural to do anything. Zhu Moxie said, Pain is unavoidable, but the Eagle King protected you. Even if he died, he was happy. What you really need to do is not to die for your brothers, but to live for them, to do more things for them. If one day you die to save your brother, although we will be sad, we will also be happy for you, because you will die bravely and with peace of mind. With peace of mind, just like Little Eagle now. Zhu Moxie said solemnly, We must let our brothers live happily and proudly because of us. Even if our brothers have passed away, we must let our brothers smile in the Yellow Springs. Yes, we should. For my brothers, I am willing to do anything. I'm not afraid of death, but I'm afraid that brother will be disappointed. Big Bear turned his head desolately and looked at Eagle King. But Old Ninth has already passed away. Old Nine did not pass away. Our brothers will always remain in our hearts. Zhu Moxie took a deep breath. Until the day you die of old age, your brothers, whether it is the Eagle King, your sister, me, or the other brothers who are not here, will always be with you. Even if they have passed away, their hearts still exist. They will always be with you. As long as you are here, and your heart is still here, our brothers will always be here. I understand. Bear King could not help but wipe his tears. He choked. I am here, and my heart is still here. Our brothers will always be here. Little Eagle will always be here. That's right. So you must live on for the Eagle King, for your brothers. Because before he died, his greatest wish was for you to live on. He just wants you to live on. Zhu Moxie said, You cannot let him down, because he is your brother. Also, the legacy of the Eagle people needs your support. You cannot die. If you really die like a coward, you will be letting down Little Nine. Bear Mountain Peak was silent, but his originally dull eyes finally gained some life. One more thing. Our brother's blood cannot be shed in vain. If others make us bleed, we will make them die. Jun Mo Xie said fiercely. Old bear, you must be prepared. We will get back at you with interest, and we will make you pay. Yes, how can our brother's blood be shed in vain? No matter what, we will not. Let those perverted bastards go extinct. Bear Mountain Peak's eyes lit up with deep hatred. Then he suddenly turned around and limped around. He searched bit by bit, collecting the scattered flesh and feathers of the Eagle King. He was so attentive, careful, and serious. And Mei Xian was also doing the same thing. The surrounding bear warriors were also searching silently. They wanted to restore the bodies of their brothers who had already gone far away, so that their brothers could complete their final journey in this world with dignity. Finally, the collection was complete. Mei Xian plucked out a strand of her hair. Then, she asked Jun Moxie to use the power of metal to forge a needle. She carefully threaded the needle and stitched up the feathers and flesh for her brother. She was so focused, and her movements were so gentle and familiar. Just like that time, when the Eagle King had transformed for the first time and put on his clothes, but accidentally tore his new clothes. She used a needle and thread to stitch him up. She could still vaguely remember the pained expression on the little eagle's face. She even reached out to pinch his hooked nose to tease him. Now, it was still the same situation, but her mood was so heavy and sad. As she stitched up, Mei Xian asked in a low voice, "That blood eagle that appeared in the sky just now, was it the forbidden ultimate move of the eagle people? 9 heavens eagle cry jade blood, burning heaven and earth mysterious eagle soul." Bear Mountain Peak sniffled and nodded heavily. Then what about the 8 seniors? Bear Mountain Peak turned his head and did not say a word. His tears flowed like a fountain. At this moment, that huge body was like a fallen leaf in the wind. Then body? Mei Xian's heart sank. She asked with a tiny bit of hope and even a little bit of pleading. Exploded, all exploded. Bear Mountain Peak answered with a thick nasal voice. He squatted down and hugged his head tightly with both hands, trying to suppress his sobs. Mei Xian's hands trembled. She stopped her movements and looked up to the sky. After a long silence, she lowered her head and continued with her work. Although she did not make a sound, her tears still flowed down her cheeks, quietly dripping onto Eagle King's ice-cold body. Mei Xian was obviously numb from the heartache. Yes, numb. Her hands were moving mechanically. She could not think of anything. She could not bear to think anymore. She did not dare to think anymore. Her long hair hung down and covered her face. It also covered her thick sorrow that was like a mountain. Alone, Jun Moxie heaved a long sigh. He stood up with his hands clasped behind his back. As smart as he was, he did not know how to console her. The wind blew for tens of thousands of miles. Jun Moxie's clothes and hair were all fluttering in the wind. But in his heart, he felt an indescribable pain and desolation. Brothers. In this world, he only recognized a few brothers. Now, one of them had died in front of him. In the future, would there be more? Although Mei Xian had woken up soon, Jun Moxie knew clearly that Mei Xian's heart was already broken. A beauty's heart was already broken. At this moment, Mei Xian was only forcibly controlling herself. As the Emperor of Tian Fa, she did not have the right to lose her composure in front of her subordinates. No matter what happened, she had to be calm. Only then could she give her subordinates confidence. Previously, when she vomited blood and fainted from grief, the psychological pressure on the soldiers was already very great. Right now, Mei Xian could not afford to lose her composure. If she wanted to cry, she could only wait until it was late at night and cry quietly by herself. But when she woke up tomorrow, she would still be the Emperor of Tian Fa. Domineering, heroic, and domineering. Jun Moxie's heart was also very pained. So pained that he almost suffocated. He had always cherished every single brother of Tian Fa. Not just the Beast King brothers of Tian Fa. Even the ordinary Xian beasts were much more cordial to Jun Moxie than to humans. Simple Xian beasts with hearts of innocence were definitely more worth befriending than normal humans. Eagle King's death caused Jun Moxie's vision to darken and his liver to break. But Mei Xian had already fainted. Jun Moxie knew that he could not lose his composure in the slightest. If the two of them grieved too much at the same time, it could be imagined that the Bear Tribe soldiers would definitely fall into chaos, and the situation would completely go out of control. If that was the case, it would truly be terrible. Even if they could salvage the situation afterwards, the morale of the soldiers would definitely be shaken. If they fought with such a mentality, these soldiers would face the danger of being completely annihilated at any time, because the weakness of a king would make them unable to see the slightest hope of victory. Standing alone in the wind, looking at the bloody battlefield, although Jun Moxie's heart was as hard as steel, he still asked himself, was it worth it? Was it worth it? This was undoubtedly a very difficult question to answer. Although he had previously said that he did not care about the people of the world, that the Xin continent had nothing to do with him, that he was not a hero, but how could he really not care about it? After all, there were still his brothers on this continent, and his family, friends, and people he could not let go of. How could he really not care? Perhaps he did not care about the people of the Xin continent, but how could he allow those disgusting, strange races to enter the continent? Chapter 1155. Before this, Jun Moxie had already estimated the strength of the strange races from the highest possible limit. But he still did not expect that this battle would be so tragic. The moment the battle started, Tian Fa actually lost 8 Saint Venerables, 1 Eagle King, 3,000 Eagle People warriors, and 2,000 Bear People warriors. In just 4 hours, they had paid such a heavy price. And in terms of strength, all the warriors that participated in the battle had a heaven reversal pill that could heal any injuries. That was a treasure that was equivalent to having an extra life. But in the end, they were left with less than 1/6 of their manpower. Then, even if the entire Tian Fa forest sent out all their elites, how long could they last? Since the strange races had such powerful strength, then how did the 3 holy lands and 1 ferocious lands win the previous war for seizing the heavens? One had to know that Jun Moxie had used the previous war for seizing the heavens as a reference. Saints could participate in the war for seizing the heavens. The Holy Emperor was the main force. Saint Venerables were the highest level of battle. All along, this was how Jun Moxie had understood it. But from the looks of it now, it seemed like he had understood it wrongly. But what Guhan and the rest had said seemed to be the same. At most, there would be a peak expert of the highest level fighting, but it would not be more than a few people. Shuiyin, where's the old battlefield of the war for seizing the heavens? Jun Moxie asked. About 1,000 li southwest from here. Mei Shuiyin had already finished stitching up the Eagle King's body. The Eagle King's feathers were neatly back on his body. He was as ferocious as he was when he was alive. Mei Shuiyin, who was standing there in a daze, subconsciously answered, "There are people guarding the Holy Lands?" Jun Moxie raised his brows. "Why is there no one guarding it?" Mei Shuiyin said, "For generations, the 3 Holy Lands and the Heaven Saint Palace have always had a strong force guarding there. In these 10,000 years, the war for seizing the heavens has never been lost." Is there someone guarding there? Jun Moxie's eyes flashed with a knife-like glint. Since there are experts guarding that place, then why haven't they come over when the battle here is already in full swing and the sky is turning upside down? The change here is no ordinary change. It's the collapse of the heavenly pillar that separates the 2 continents. Where are they now? Jun Moxie slowly raised his head and looked into the distance. With an unusually indifferent tone, he said, "The pillars of heaven's mountains collapse is extremely powerful. Under such power, not to mention ordinary people, even Shun Xian experts, supreme martial artists, or even venerable martial artists would have a high chance of dying. Even saints would be injured under such awe-inspiring power. However, it would not be able to hurt the Holy Emperor, the Lord. Since it was such an important place, the expert station there must at least be at the saint level, right? Since they didn't die, there was no way they didn't know about this. How could they not know that the strange races had come with such an overwhelming force? But why? Why haven't they arrived yet? Jun Moxie's voice was very indifferent when he said this. But not to mention Mei Shuiyin, who was familiar with Jun Moxie. Even the Slower Bear King and Bear Mountain could clearly sense the bone-chilling coldness in Jun Moxie's tone. In Jun Moxie's 2 lives, he had never suffered such a heavy loss. After this battle, the Vanguard had lost more than 80% of its troops. This included the Beast King of Tian Fa, the Eagle King, 8 Saint Venerables, and all the elite experts of the Eagle people. Even the warriors of the Bear tribe who were lucky enough to survive were all injured, and their battle prowess was greatly reduced. Such a heavy loss, with so many of his brothers leaving him. How could Jun Mo Xie not feel pain? If Mei Shuiyan's heart was broken, Jun Moxie's was no worse. At least Mei Shuiyan could still cry secretly when she was alone, and Jun Dashao could comfort her. But Jun Moxie could only bury all the pain and sorrow in his heart. He couldn't even tell anyone, because he was a man and a leader. Honestly speaking, Tian Fa had indeed sacrificed a lot in this battle, but the results of the battle were glorious to the extreme. With the loss of 5,000 men, they had destroyed more than 20 times the enemy's forces, including the 13 Supremacy Enduring Heavens, over 100 Frenzy Blade Enduring Earths, and hundreds of thousands of outsiders. Such a result was something that the Xian continent had never achieved in the past 10,000 years. Such a glorious result was definitely unprecedented and would never be repeated again. But no matter how glorious the battle results were, it did not enter Jun Dashao's heart. No matter how great the battle results were, it could not be exchanged for the lives of his own men. Jun Moxie was an extremely protective person. In his heart, not to mention 100 or 200,000, even all the outsiders were not as important as his Tian Fa brothers. Jun Moxie had always known that wars were filled with sacrifices. As long as there was a war, there would definitely be sacrifices. But he did not wish for this sacrifice to befall on his own people. So he did not care about the price to raise the battle strength of Tian Fa's Shin Beasts. He even gave a heaven-defying medicine like the Heaven Reversal Pill to everyone, ensuring that everyone had one. But there were still sacrifices. The pain and sorrow in Jun Moxie's heart could be imagined, but there was no one to vent it on. All the outsiders had already disappeared without a trace, and this matter did not seem to implicate the Heaven Saint Palace or the 3 Holy Lands. But right at this moment, Jun Moxie unexpectedly found out that there were other people in charge of guarding the area, and it was a sizable number of extremely powerful experts. Jun Moxie was completely enraged. He was enraged to the extreme. After the battle with Zhang Luan Hui and understanding the strength of the Heaven Saint Palace and the 3 Holy Lands, he was still calculating the strength of both sides. But right now, he could no longer consider it. There was no need to calculate the strength of the enemy. He would know sooner or later as long as he continued killing. No matter how strong or weak the enemy was, he would definitely kill them all. Since it was destined that only one side could survive, then it did not matter how strong or weak they were. But when he found out that the experts guarding the Pillar of Heaven's mountains clearly had the strength to participate in the battle, but did not appear, this result made Jun Moxie completely enraged. His rage instantly rose to the limit. The Tian Fa allied army could be considered to have been completely wiped out this time. In such a tragic situation, those people actually did not lend a helping hand. If they lent a helping hand, would the 8 Saint Venerables of Tian Fa all die? Would the Eagle King and the warriors of the Eagle people all be sacrificed? As Jun Moxie's words rang in her ears, Mei Shuiyan's breathing suddenly stopped. An unconcealable, bone-deep hatred shot out from her eyes. She was too overwhelmed with grief just now and did not think about anything else. But now that she was reminded by Jun Moxie, Mei Shuiyan felt as if she had been struck by lightning. Her heart suddenly exploded. Why? In order to help you fight against the strange races, our Tian Fa could be said to have given it our all. Ever since the incident at the Pillar of Heaven's mountains, we had already sent our troops to the battlefield from far away. All of this was for the continent, for all of you. But Why was it that when the first batch of our allied army arrived and started the battle with the strange races, they were almost completely wiped out in the end? And all of you, who were so close, did not lend a helping hand at all. Even until now, not a single one of you has appeared. Why? Could it be that at such a time, you still chose to watch from the sidelines? Sit on top of the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Do you really think that we are brainless idiots? Damn it! Mei Shuiyan clenched her teeth and spat out these two words. She could no longer suppress the murderous aura that she had been suppressing just now, and it instantly soared up. Although you did not directly kill us, but my brothers have indirectly died in your hands. This kind of bastard is even more hateful than those strange races invaders. This enmity, this hatred, is absolutely irreconcilable. Jun Moxie scoffed coldly, also filled with killing intent. But he did not say anything else. He took out the best medicine and treated the injuries of the lucky survivors of the bear tribe. The cries of cranes could be heard from afar. Looking from afar, it was like a vast expanse of white clouds had arrived. The second batch of reinforcements. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyin had finally arrived with the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer, as well as the 300 Xian cranes. They had arrived an hour earlier than expected. Jun Moxie's face was as hard as steel. That night, the Tian Fa and Evil Monarch Manor's army set up camp 30 li away from the battlefield. But no one was able to sleep. No one cried. The entire camp was terrifyingly silent, and the oppressive atmosphere was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. In the wee hours of the morning, Crane King Long Crane and Tiger King arrived with the third group of 6,000 warriors. In the silent night, in the silent camp, the Crane King's earth-shattering howl of grief suddenly rang out. Mei Shuiyan did not sleep the entire night. She did not even move her posture. She just sat in front of the Eagle King's corpse in the tent for the entire night. It was a silent night. According to Tian Fa's rules, the first night after the death of a dead brother, there must be a relative or elder to keep vigil. This was to send him on his final journey. Mei Shuiyan was the Eagle King's most respected elder sister. She should have been the best choice, but she was also the Tian Fa emperor. Tian Fa's rules forbade emperors from keeping vigil for their own people. Even for their own brother, the Eagle King, who was also a beast king of Tian Fa, it was not allowed. Tian Fa's Xian beasts respected the strong. This had been the case since ancient times. As the strongest emperor, he could not keep vigil for any of his own people. However, Mei Shuiyan disregarded everything and completely ignored this rule, silently accompanying her brother, spending this last night, sending him on his final journey. The spirit tablets of the 8 Saint Venerables and 3,000 eagle people were neatly arranged. It was densely packed, as if the Xian eagles were still charging in formation. Jun Moxie, Mei Shuiyan, Crane King Long Crane, Bear King, Bear Mountain, and Tiger King Earthcracker sat quietly, like 5 statues, not moving at all. Chapter 11:56. This night was filled with sorrow, but it was also a night without the sound of crying. Tears only flowed in their hearts. The sky gradually turned white, and the tent also gradually brightened. Mei Shuiyan looked hesitantly at the sky that was gradually turning white, as if she was very reluctant to part. But she finally took a deep breath and said in a hoarse voice, 8 seniors, little eagle, and all the eagle people brothers, have a safe journey. If you have time, you must come to Tian Fa to visit. We miss you, whether it's in the sky or on the ground. In the underworld, you are all our family. Mei Shuiyan stood up reluctantly and bowed deeply. 2 drops of crystal-clear tears finally could not be held back and fell to the ground as she bowed. Crane King, Bear King, and Tiger King knelt down and kowtowed at the same time. Their suppressed sobs could be heard faintly. All right, don't cry anymore. Let our brothers go on this last journey with peace of mind. Jun Moxie bowed deeply, his eyes red. This is war. As long as it is war, there will be sacrifices and casualties. And this war has only just begun. Who knows, Maybe one day we will go and find them. I believe that if that day really comes, we will definitely not wish to see our brothers so heartbroken. Yes, Tiger King, Bear King, and Crane King were both solemn. Even though their hearts were broken, their faces were even more resolute. June Moxie waved his hand, and the countless memorial tablets and Eagle King's corpse disappeared at the same time. They were kept into the Hong Jun Pagoda. Only there could he ensure the integrity and safety of these things. Mei Shuiyin and the others were still looking around the empty tent reluctantly. Bear King slowly squatted down and placed his face on the ground where Eagle King's corpse had been. He closed his eyes tightly, and tears of heartache finally flowed out uncontrollably. But he did not make a sound, just his body twitching violently. Then Bear Mountain slowly stood up, straightened his back, and walked out without looking back. Everyone, keep an eye on your troops and wait for orders. The battle could start again at any time. June Moxie took a deep breath. Suddenly, his face turned cold, and he said resolutely, "Before receiving the order from me or your big sister, if anyone dares to act on his own, he will be beheaded on the spot where 3,000 Eagle people died." Bear Mountain, who was the first to walk out of the tent, and Crane King and Tiger King, who were still in the tent, shuddered. Being beheaded where one's brother had died in battle was the most severe form of punishment from Tian Fa. Once they were dealt with in such a manner, that person would become the shame of Tian Fa. In the entire Tian Fa forest, no one would admit that this person was their brother. This was an order that June Moxie had no choice but to issue, fearing that these hot-blooded men would act on their own accord to avenge the Eagle King. Even though he was helpless, even though he was unwilling, he had no choice but to do so, because this was the only way to truly restrain these beast kings who had already lost their sanity in the flames of hatred. After a while, the few beast kings had all walked out of the tent. Not far away, a few volcanoes had already stopped erupting, but thick black smoke was still rising from them. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyin led the Heaven Destroyer and Spirit Devourer troops, and stood at the front lines, vigilantly watching the movements on the other side of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains. Tonight, they had already stayed vigilant like this for the entire night, because this night belonged to the Tian Fa forest. Although Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyin did not participate in the memorial service for the Eagle King and the 8 Saint Venerables, they were here to silently guard them, ensuring that the warriors of Tian Fa would not be disturbed when they released the grief in their hearts and sent their brothers on their final journey. "Are there any movements from the strange races?" June Moxie asked. "Up until now, there are only small groups of people gathering. There's not much movement." Feng Zhuanyin's body was as straight as a spear. When he heard June Moxie's question, he immediately answered. "Yesterday, why did so many experts gather in such a short period of time? Logically speaking, since such a large-scale battle had already occurred, the strange races should be sending reinforcements continuously. But why is it so deserted now? Something's not right, huh?" June Mo Xie frowned as he pondered. His gaze slowly swept across the surrounding mountains. Suddenly, his heart skipped a beat. At this time, many volcanoes had already stopped erupting, and the temperature had also dropped by a lot. Compared to yesterday, it was almost incomparable. The strange races are waiting for the volcanoes to completely stop erupting. June Moxie's Adam's apple bobbed up and down as a cold light shot out from his eyes. He exchanged a look with Mei Shuiyin and saw the worry in each other's eyes. In yesterday's battle, the strange races had suffered heavy casualties. They must have realized that a forceful attack would not be effective, so they changed their strategy. After all, from the sacrifice of the eagle and bear tribes, it could be seen that the strength of the strange races was extremely strong. Even the 8 Saint Venerables had fallen one by one. June Moxie, Mei Shuiyin, and the Xian beasts of Tian Fa were naturally unwilling to accept such a result. But the strange race's side was in an even worse state. A total of 13 supremacy enduring heavens had fallen in this battle. Over 300 frenzy blade enduring earths were also finished. If one were to say that the strange races could remain unmoved in such a battle, Jun Moxie would not believe it even if he was beaten to death. With such a strong battle strength, they clearly wanted to break through in one fell swoop and then continue to send reinforcements. But now, such a large number of strange races had died in battle. He believed that the strange races would definitely not be able to bear such a price. So, they had no choice but to change their strategy. They might as well not be in a hurry to start a war. They would wait until the volcanoes stopped erupting and the weather returned to normal. When the environment was no longer a burden, then they would make a comeback. And this idea was extremely sinister, because the pillar of heaven's mountains, an insurmountable barrier, had already disappeared forever. Without the threat of the volcanoes, the vast expanse of land was equivalent to a smooth road. At that time, once the strange races pressed forward, they would be able to easily break through any direction they chose. No matter how many experts the Xian continent had, they would definitely not be able to defend against all of them. The reason was simple. This battle line was simply too long, and before the volcanoes completely stopped erupting, as well as the cooling down period, all of these required time. During this period of time, the strange races could make use of this opportunity to gather their army. Although the Xian continent could also gather their army, firstly, the distance was long, and secondly, Xian was in a defensive position. But the strange races completely held the initiative to attack. They could break through from any direction, while the Xian continent could only defend passively. The difference between this was like the difference between heaven and earth. Faced with such a terrible situation, how should they deal with it? Jun Moxie paced back and forth slowly, deep in thought. But he felt completely clueless. Mei Shuiyan furrowed her brows, also thinking of a solution. After a while, the two of them sighed at the same time. Defending passively is not a good idea, but taking the initiative to attack, Jun Moxie sighed and said, is also not appropriate. Yes, after all, that is the strange race's territory. If we take the initiative to attack, we may not be able to find their weak points. And the moment we attack, the number of people participating in the battle must not be small, and they must all be elite experts. In this way, our defense will naturally be weaker. Once the strange races attack, our strength is already insufficient, and with this, it will be even more difficult to defend. Mei Shuiyan nodded. Jun Moxie nodded heavily, his expression turning uglier. Just at this time, the two of them sensed something and looked into the distance. In the distance, figures were flying, approaching Tian Fa's camp from several directions. Among them, the person leading the fastest was the number 1 person of the Heaven Saint Palace, Guhan. The people from the 3 Holy Lands had finally arrived. Jun Moxie's face darkened, and his eyes turned cold. Mei Shuiyan's pretty face instantly turned pale, and her heart was filled with a monstrous killing intent and boundless anger. If you want to defend against external threats, you must first defend against internal threats. Jun Mo, Siem muttered in a low voice. His eyes shone brightly as he said slowly, "The worries of the future are like a thorn in my back. Even if the world is destroyed, I must get rid of them. I must get rid of them." These words he said resolutely and decisively. Mei Shuiyan was shocked and turned to look at him. "Our brothers can't die in vain," Jun Moxie said calmly. "As the main culprits, the strange races must pay the price. But those who watch from the sidelines must give me an explanation no matter what. Otherwise, I will feel that the Eagle King is watching me from the netherworld. This kind of gaze makes me feel guilty and unable to sleep peacefully. Underground, there are still the 8 Saint Venerables and 3,000 Eagle People brothers and 2,000 Bear People brothers. They're all looking at me. Their eyes are filled with trust. I, Jun Moxie, cannot let my brothers down. Even if I have to pay the price of the entire continent, I must get this explanation back. Otherwise, this kind of thing will happen again, and we can no longer afford to lose any of our brothers." After saying that, Jun Mo Xie took large strides forward to meet them. Behind him, Tiger King, Bear King, and Crane King's eyes shone brightly. They looked at June Moxie's back view, not moving for a long time. Mei Shuyan looked at her lover's back view, and her eyes suddenly became hazy. In the tent, June Moxie sat boldly on the highest chair in the middle. His eyes were as cold as knives as he looked at Guhan and the rest who were walking in one after another. Mei Shuyan sat down on the seat beside him. Tiger King, Bear King, Crane King, Solitary Eagle, and Feng Wanyun sat below Mei Shuyan. The seven of them looked extremely solemn. Guhan was the first to enter the tent, his face full of smiles. But he instantly sensed the strange atmosphere in the tent and couldn't help but ask in surprise, "Manor Lord June, may I ask what happened? Why is it like this?" Behind him, the people from Heaven's Saint Palace, Shi Ruo, Chun, Huyan Ao Bo, and Mo Wu Dao, also entered in shock. They did not know what June Moxie wanted to do by putting on such a posture. Chapter 1157. Today's third chapter. What's missing is the 13th chapter. This chapter has 4,200 words. Reinforcements? What reinforcements? June Moxie laughed coldly. Who is whose reinforcements? Mo Wu Dao? Lord Mo, is your brain flooded with water? You must think clearly before you speak. Don't let others think that the leaders of the three holy lands only know how to fart and not speak properly. Although Mo Wu Dao himself was not a peerless expert, due to his esteemed status, even the Saint Venerable Seniors of the three holy lands had to treat him with respect. When had he ever been scolded so harshly by someone like this? His face burned and blood rushed to his head. Just as he was about to say something, he was stopped by Guhan, who sat down first. Guhan knew that June Moxie was not the kind of person who would be hot-headed and arrogant. There must be a reason why he was behaving like this right now. Otherwise, it was impossible for him to be acting so coldly when he was fighting alongside the enemy and even generously giving out the peerless divine medicine yesterday. Manor Lord June, if the Heaven Saint Palace has offended you in any way, please feel free to say it. With the enemy before us, if we do not remove the estrangement between us, I believe it will be difficult for us to cooperate. Guhan sat down calmly and smiled. Good. Senior Gu is a straightforward person. Since that's the case, I will not act pretentiously and speak frankly. A cold smile appeared on June Moxie's face as he asked, "But I wonder how many people are guarding the battlefield of the war for seizing the heavens?" Guhan's eyes narrowed inexplicably. As expected, there was a problem, but he did not know what those people had done to be able to make this unruly, evil monarch angry to this extent. But right now, both sides were working together to resist the invasion of the strange races. It was not a good time to have any disputes, especially when the other side was the main force of this battle. There are quite a number of people guarding the battlefield. Guhan thought for a moment and decided to speak the truth. After all, the strange races might not keep their promises. They might come and harass us at any time. June Moxie snorted coldly and said, "In Senior Gu's opinion, the unexpected collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains and the subsequent eruption of the volcano will cause them to suffer heavy casualties." That's impossible. Guhan laughed. Those people are all elites handpicked by the three holy lands. Even the weakest amongst them was at the Saint Realm. The collapse of the Pillar of Heaven's mountains this time was an accident. Although it happened suddenly, it shouldn't have buried so many experts. I can guarantee this. Oh, was that so? But how many people were there in total? June Mo. Xie tilted his head and asked, "What are the specific arrangements for each level of expert?" Knowing that there must be a deeper meaning behind June Moxie's question, Guhan did not beat around the bush and explained in detail. The number of guardians in the war for seizing the heavens has never been less than 300. Among them, the number of people was increasing. There were 2 saint monarchs, 18 saint venerables, 100 holy emperors, and 200 saints. Every 100 years, the saints would be rotated. All the saints stationed in the war for seizing the heavens would return to the Heaven Saint Palace to prepare to break through the bottleneck of the Holy Emperor. And after the breakthrough, there would be another rotation. When they return, they would be able to advance further. Guhan smiled and said, "Such a rotation is to make use of the strange races, to train the soldiers through battle, to raise the quality of their experts. Only then can they ensure that there will be many experts. In fact, after the accident, the Heaven Saint Palace and the three Holy Lands have lost a lot of their strength. This force in the war, for seizing the Heavens Camp, is already the most elite force that we can bring out. What a good, using war to train. The Heaven Saint Palace's strength is indeed strong. The most elite force, hee. June Moxie laughed mockingly. Since the three Holy Lands still have such a strong force, they probably won't put the strange races in their eyes. Then, this most elite force of yours, where are they now? Naturally, they are guarding the war for seizing the heavens. This is their duty. If there is no huge change, why would they move Guhan suddenly paused. War for seizing the heavens. The pillar of heaven's mountains have already collapsed. Where's the war for seizing the heavens? Huge change? Is this not considered a huge change? June Moxie Langlang said. I really cannot understand Senior Gu's words. Could it be that Senior Gu is joking? This old man has indeed misspoken. Manor Lord June is saying, and could it be that they did not participate in the battle a few days ago? Guhan's face instantly turned extremely ugly. As soon as they arrived, they could tell that an extremely tragic battle had just taken place on this piece of land. The intensity of this battle could be said to be the first time in their lives. Just from the little clues, there were at least over 20 Saint Venerables who had participated in this battle, and most of them had already fallen. Otherwise, the heaven-earth spiritual chi here would not be so unbalanced. So Guhan had assumed that those people who were originally guarding the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains had definitely participated in this battle. Who knew that June Moxie would suddenly ask such a series of questions? There was a reason behind it, and the answer was obvious. These peak experts actually did not participate in this battle. This time, if Guhan still could not figure out what the problem was, then he would have lived these 3,000 years in vain. The faces of the experts of Heaven's Saint Palace, Missouri Wudao, and the rest all changed with this schwa. Many of them even had flames of rage in their eyes. With the experience and knowledge of the people present, they could easily guess what kind of losses would be caused by such a huge battle. Since those people did not participate in the battle, then the losses from before would naturally all be on the heads of Tian Fa Forest. This was something that almost no one could tolerate. Even Mo Wudao's eyes were filled with intense rage. Right now, they already understood June Moxie. If they were the ones who encountered such a thing, their reactions would probably be much more intense than his. This was directly throwing stones at a person who was down, and it was towards their own comrades. And the success or failure of this battle directly concerned the lives of the world, the entire continent. This kind of behavior was simply shameless to the extreme. No one had imagined that these people would be crushed to death by the Pillar of Heaven's Mountains, because that was something impossible. Right now, there was no battle in other places. Only this place, there was only one conclusion. They did not want to make a move. So they did not make a move. In yesterday's battle, the outsiders had mobilized close to 200,000 people. There was no lack of experts among them, including thousands of hell-enduring ghosts, over 400 frenzy blade enduring earths, and 13 supremacy enduring heavens. They fought with our Tian Fa brothers who had traveled tens of thousands of li to reinforce them, and fought for a full 6 hours. Until the battle ended, Tian Fa did not see any reinforcements. June Moxie suddenly stood up, his hands behind his back. His eyes were like two sharp swords, sweeping across the faces of everyone from the three holy lands. Where his gaze landed, everyone was speechless and lowered their heads. All of them were so ashamed that they could not show their faces. They had used all sorts of methods, preached righteousness, moved their emotions, and begged in every possible way before the Tian Fa Forest and Evil Monarch Manor finally let bygones be bygones and fought with all their might. They traveled tens of thousands of li, traveling day and night to rush to the pillar of heaven's mountains to join the battle. But who would have thought that while the reinforcements were rushing over and bathed in blood, their own people, who were so close at hand, were like turtles hiding in their shells, watching from the side. Everyone's face felt as if they had been slapped in the face with a burning sensation. Does everyone here know the details of this battle? Jun Mo Sie's face revealed an unconcealable, mournful, yet incomparably proud expression. The Tian Fa people around him also had a sorrowful and proud expression on their faces, but they still puffed their chests up high. This was the pride that belonged only to Tian Fa. It was exchanged with the lives of their brothers. In this moment, everyone from Tian Fa was filled with pride and grief. Guhan could already imagine the reason behind it. His face was as red as blood, and the veins on his forehead throbbed with anger. Gritting his teeth, he said, "I would like to hear the details." His anger was naturally not because of Jun Moxie's impoliteness and overbearingness, but because of the inaction of the heaven-seizing army. Right now, Guhan was only thinking about how good it would be if a crack suddenly appeared on the ground. He would definitely dig into it immediately. No matter what, it would be better than this kind of unbearable torture right now. This kind of humiliation was given to him by his own people. He couldn't avoid it, and there was no way to avoid it. He could only listen obediently and bear the consequences. This battle, the first wave of Tian Fa's army set off from the Tian Fa forest, traveling a long distance to reach here. Everyone participated in the entire process. Jun Moxie's voice suddenly grew louder, as if he was shouting, his voice trembling slightly. The Eagle King led 3,000 Eagle People warriors, and the Bear King led 3,000 elites of the Bear tribe. There were also the Tian Fa Forest Saint Venerable Lu and the other Saint Venerables, engaging in a bloody battle with the strange race's army of over 200,000. Before coming here, the strength of these brothers had all been raised using secret techniques. Even the weakest among them had reached the 4th level of the Venerable Realm, just a step away from stepping into the Saint Realm. Jun Moxie's voice reverberated in everyone's ears. Speaking till here, Jun Mo Sie paused and raised his head to the sky. Taking a deep breath, he said indifferently, "Everyone, do you know the final result of this battle? The people of the Holy Land who speak about the safety of the continent and the people of the world?" Guhan felt his face burning, but he had no choice but to speak. Won. Of course we won. If we didn't win, do you think this place would still be so peaceful? Not only did we win this battle, it was a great victory, Jun Mo Sie said solemnly. Close to 200,000 strange races soldiers were completely routed, leaving less than 10,000 who managed to escape with their lives. Among them, the thousands of hell-enduring ghosts were mostly buried here. As for the 400 over Frenzy Blade enduring earths, they were all turned into dust. The strongest 13 supremacy enduring heavens were all killed, without exception. With a loud boom, the tent was filled with agitation and disbelief. With the strange race's strength, even if the 3 holy lands at their peak sent out all their forces, they would still have to pay an unimaginably huge price in order to obtain victory. But right now, the Tian Fa forest had actually achieved such a glorious battle result. How is this possible? How is this possible? Mo Wu Dao exclaimed in shock and joy. Senior Gu, I was only talking about the result of this battle and the enemy's losses. But do you know what kind of price our Tian Fa forest had to pay for this battle? Jun Moxie did not bother with Mo Wu Dao. He only stared at Guhan and said solemnly, "Our Tian Fa, the 8 Tian Fa, Saint Venerables, the King of the Eagle People, 3,000 Eagle People warriors, and over 2,000 Bear Tribe warriors, all became legends in this battle." Guhan suddenly raised his head. His face was pale white. Do you want to know how they died? Jun Moxie could only feel an uncontrollable rage in his heart. He rushed forward and said hoarsely, "All the brothers of our Tian Fa who died in this battle, not a single one of them left their bodies on that battlefield. Other than the Eagle King who died protecting his comrades, the others all died by self-detonation. And it was the extreme self-detonation of their bodies, souls, and xian qi. In this way, we achieved the glorious battle result that sect head Mo thought was impossible. Everyone's body shook violently, and they were all dumbfounded. Everyone had already expected that this battle would be exceptionally intense, but they had never imagined that it would be so tragic. A total of 8 Saint Venerables and 6,000 warriors above the Saint realm actually had to use the most extreme method of self-detonation to stop the enemy's invasion. Right now, I only want to ask one thing. When our warriors were bathed in blood, where were your people? The Eagle people and Bear tribes, allied forces, traveled day and night to reach this place. Where are the elite experts of the war for seizing the heavens? Jun Moxie's gaze was like a cold arrow as he looked at Guhan and the rest. Even if they did not expect the strange races to invade so quickly and did not notice the start of the battle, when our warriors were self-detonating one by one to defend against the strange races, the elite experts that you left behind in the war for seizing the heavens are less than an hour's journey away from here. Even with the speed of a first-level Holy Emperor, where are they? Could it be that these experts are all deaf? Are they all blind? Jun Moxie smiled indifferently, a cold, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Guhan, those who died in battle are all my brothers. They are my brothers, Jun Moxie's brothers. All this while, he had addressed Guhan as Senior Gu. But now, the way he addressed Guhan had suddenly changed, calling him by his name. Although his voice was as indifferent as before, it was filled with a sense of urgency and hostility. The upper echelons of the 3 Holy Lands, a total of 40 to 50 people, all felt extremely ashamed under Jun Moxie's gaze. Humiliation. This was definitely the greatest humiliation. They watched helplessly as their comrades died in battle one by one, and the people on their side didn't even show up. Facing the cold gazes of Jun Moxie, Mei Shuyan, and the rest, Guhan suddenly felt that there was nothing he could say. Not only Guhan, everyone from the 3 Holy Lands found it hard to say a single word. Even the smooth and slick Mo Wudao was speechless. This was an unforgivable sin. Chapter 1158. Before Guhan could speak, a voice suddenly rang out from afar, filled with mockery. Explanation? Explanation? What explanation? How to explain? Even if he really died with grievances, so what? Who? Get out here! Jun Moxie's face changed. Guhan roared in rage. Who's the one playing tricks? Show yourself. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds of people landed on the ground outside the tent at the same time. The 2 people in the lead were dressed in white robes and wore golden crowns. Their faces were thin, and their eyes shone with a golden light as they looked at the people in the tent with disdain. And this kind of gaze was even more provocative as it landed on Jun Moxie's face. His figure flashed, and everyone only saw a blur before their eyes. Jun Moxie had already left the tent. Jun Mo Xie's entire body was mixed with an extremely tyrannical and terrifying aura as he glared at the approaching man. Ever since he had been reborn in this world, Jun Mo Xie had never released his murderous aura without any reservation. His aura had reached an extremely fierce level. In this instant, whether it was the people inside or outside the tent, whether it was the people from the 3 Holy Lands or the evil monarch manor, everyone could clearly feel Jun Moxie's determination to destroy everything in his path. Right now, he was like the god of death, the Nether King descending into the mortal world. Every movement, every glance, and even every twitch of his eyebrows was filled with a chilling, surging aura of death. Guhan only felt a chill in his heart as he hurriedly walked out to stand in front of Jun Moxie. The current Jun Moxie actually made him, a Saint Monarch expert, feel an indescribable sense of danger. That was the feeling that his life and soul were in mortal danger. Guhan had a feeling that with Jun Moxie's current state, he only needed to say a word and he would be able to poke a hole in the sky. As for the people of the world, they were nothing in his eyes. What he wanted was only an explanation. An explanation. At this moment, the evil monarch could not be bothered to consider what righteousness and the bigger picture. One word of disagreement, and he would kill. There was only slaughter. Who was talking just now? Jun Moxie smiled faintly and raised his eyebrows. The light in his eyes exploded like thunder. He looked at the two people in front of him and said lightly, "Explanation? What explanation? Explain, how do we explain? Even if we die with everlasting regret. So what?" Who said that? Guhan was practically stomping his feet in anxiety. This bunch of damned bastards, they had disappeared when they should have acted, but they had appeared when they should not have appeared. They could not have appeared earlier or later, but they just had to appear at this time that they should not have appeared. And they even said something that even Guhan himself could not forgive. These two people were the other two saint monarchs of the Heaven Saint Palace. Lightning Sage Monarch Xia Changtian and Thunderclap Sage Monarch Jibowen. These two had been guarding the war for seizing the heavens for over 3,000 years. His cultivation was only slightly lower than Guhan, a third-grade saint monarch. In the entire Xian continent, he could be considered as a true peak expert. It was just that these two people's personalities were extremely extreme, and they were extremely protective of their own people. It was precisely because of their stubborn and self-opinionated personalities that they were not up to the task of guarding the Heaven Saint Palace or being the leader of the Holy Lands. So Guhan had arranged for them to guard the war for seizing the heavens for training. One had to admit that this arrangement of Guhan's made the best use of their talents. The weaknesses of these two people complemented each other perfectly when dealing with the strange races in the war for seizing the heavens. In these 3,000 years, who knew how many times the strange races have been defeated by them? To the Xian continent, these two people were definitely worthy of being called great heroes and meritorious subjects. With their cultivation bases, how could they not know that such a fierce battle was taking place here from such a short distance away? So when Guhan heard Jun Moxie's words, he immediately knew that the root of this matter was these two people. The reason was very simple. They had never liked the battle strength of Tian Fa. As for the Xian beasts representing the Xian continent to participate in the war for seizing the heavens, they felt that it was the greatest humiliation to the human race. How could the safety of the human race be protected by a bunch of wild beasts? Even if they won, it was still a great humiliation, Humans under the protection of wild beasts. Just the thought of it was a great humiliation. Originally, Guhan was still thinking that it was fine if it didn't come out. At most, they would take care of Tian Fa a little more. Then, he would slowly erase this influence. But who would have thought that they would suddenly appear here? This time, both sides were facing each other with swords drawn and bows drawn. There was no room for negotiation. The wrong time, the wrong place, and the wrong person had said the wrong words. The only result would be an extremely wrong result. It's me. What is it? The Lightning Saint Monarch, Xia Changtian, took a step forward and looked at Jun Moxie playfully. Kid, from your appearance, you should also be a human. You're not a Xian beast in human form, right? Jun Moxie looked at Xia Changtian coldly and said slowly, "In this life, the people I hate the most are never my enemies. Since they belong to the enemy, then whatever the enemy does, no matter how despicable, shameless, and dirty, is all right. I will only go and kill them, but I will not hate them." His words were completely irrelevant to the question. It was 1,000 li away from the main topic, but everyone could feel the coldness in it. "I know you hate us for not taking action. This old man also knows what you hate." Xia Changtian's eyes flashed with anger, but he still suppressed his temper. "You want to say that the people you hate the most in your life are people like us who stand by the side and do nothing? But do you know why this old man stood by the side and did nothing? There's always a reason for everything." Jun Moxie chuckled coldly. "No matter what the reason is, it's all the same." "Ridiculous. Xiao Chong Tian snorted coldly. If not for the fact that we're facing a great battle, this old man would have killed you with just this sentence. Jun Moxie roared with laughter, but his laughter suddenly stopped. Even if we're facing a great enemy, this old man will kill you with my hands first. Xiao Chong Tian's eyes narrowed as he stared at Jun Moxie with a piercing gaze. After a long time, he said in a low voice, "To think that you're still a human. You don't even have the slightest bit of awareness as a human. Do you know the difference between Xian beasts and humans?" Jun Mo Xie slowly closed his eyes and acted as if he hadn't heard anything. The spiritual qi in his body circulated vigorously. He was preparing to adjust his strength to the peak. The strength of this person in front of him was deep and unfathomable. His current strength was not even comparable to this person. But no matter what, this person was definitely going to die today. He must die. Xiao Chong Tian was practically jumping with rage. If not for the fact that Gu Han kept giving him meaningful looks, he would have already turned hostile. This young evil monarch was simply too lawless. What kind of status does this old man have? To be willing to lower my status and explain to him is already giving him a lot of face. He actually closed his eyes. This was intolerable. Xian beasts, in the beginning of the continent, were merely mounts for us humans. Xiao Chong Tian said darkly. With the passage of time, tens of thousands of years have passed. To think that mere beasts would actually transform into humans and openly participate in the war for seizing the heavens. This is simply the biggest joke in the world. Jun Moxie closed his eyes and adjusted his breathing, not saying a single word. We humans are the most intelligent of all creatures. How can mere Xian beasts be mentioned in the same breath as us? And now, you actually dare to say that these beasts are your brothers. Could it be that you've already given up on your pride as a human and are willing to become a Xian beast? Xiao Chong Tian said slowly. In this world, you must remember not to forget that your ancestors are also humans. Mei Shuiyan and the rest's eyes were spitting fire. They could no longer hold it in. Tiger King and Bear King were about to rush out to fight, but they were held back by Long Crane. Brother-in-law is here. Let's see what brother-in-law has to say. Zhu Moxie finally opened his eyes slowly. Are you done? Xiao Chong Tian Lingling said. What do you want? If you're done, then let's make our move. Jun Mo Xie said indifferently. His eyelids flipped, and his eyes shot out like lightning, sweeping past the 300 people in front of him. He said emotionlessly, I wonder how many people are still insisting on not rescuing them. If you have the guts, why don't you all take a step forward? Let me see. Arrogant. Xiao Chong Tian roared in rage. Jun Moxie, you're seeking death. Gu Han hurriedly stood in the middle, his face scrunched up like a bitter gourd as he waved his hands. The enemy is right in front of us. All of you better speak less. AI, in such a perilous situation, are we really going to kill each other? I don't want to kill each other. It's this evil monarch that you invited that's too much. Xiao Chong Tian Lingling said. Boss Gu, I need an explanation for this matter. Explanation? Gu Han almost fainted from anger. You still want an explanation for me? What were you doing when the Alliance was fighting a bloody battle? Why didn't you come to help? Now, when others are criticizing you, not only do you not know your mistakes, you still want an explanation from me. What explanation? Mere Xian beasts are not worth saving. It's just a waste of manpower. Xiao Chong Tian said calmly. Even without them, we've already resisted the strange races for 10,000 years. However, as cannon fodder, it's still necessary to exhaust the strength of the strange races. Gu Han was so angry that his entire body was trembling. This is a time of life and death for the entire continent, and you still have such a narrow-minded view. If they were to lose this battle, then all living beings would be plunged into an abyss of suffering. Xiao Chong Tian, you've really disappointed me. 8 Saint Venerables, 5,000 Saint Holy Emperor warriors, to be buried just like that. We won't lose this battle. Xiao Chong Tian said disdainfully. This old man has been fighting against the strange races for over 3,000 years. Do you think I don't know them? In these 3,000 years, when have they ever been able to cross the pillar of heaven's mountains from my hands? But the pillar of heaven's mountains is already gone. Guhan roared. Can you face reality a little? What's the use of always being so arrogant? Shut up. A loud shout rang out. A loud voice interrupted the two's argument. Guhan and Xiaochang Tian were both stunned. They didn't expect that someone would actually dare to interrupt their conversation. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.